Hello, ma'am. What's your name?
My name is Maud Winston Holston.
And what, your parents' name?
My parents' name is William Arch Winston and Martha Jane Pierce Winston.
And your grandparents' name?
My mother's parents were John Jefferson Pierce and Mary Anna Drummonds Pierce. And my father's parents were Sarah Elizabeth Cole Winston and Nathaniel Meekins Winston.
And you got to see a lot of people at the Clinton Baptist homecoming, didn't you?
I sure did. Saw a lot of people that I grew up with and haven't seen for many years.
Well, how long has it been since you've been back to a service at Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I came back for Francis Porter's funeral, but I never do get to go to preaching services.
And how many children do you have?
I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls.
And what's their ages?
The oldest one is 32, and the next one is a girl 28 and a girl 26. No, I'm wrong. The oldest boy is 32, a girl 30, a girl 28, and a boy 26.
4 kids, and I guess they all gone now, haven't they?
Yes, they've all left home.
Well, tell me about tell me about something you remember when you lived in Clinton and went to the Clinton Baptist Church.
Well, the main thing I remember is that I wanted to play the piano real bad, and I didn't have one at home. So this girl, Catherine Lee, taught me the notes on the piano, and I would go over to Clinton Baptist Church and practice. But I was scared to be there by myself. So I remember Mr. Pinckney Roebuck. He would sit down at the store a lot of times, and he would always stop by and listen to me play the piano on his way home. So I would be continuously turning my neck around to see who was at the back door. And also Ray Porter. He would try to come up there and scare me.
He would.
But I was determined to learn to play the piano.
Did you learn?
And I learned, and I played for church services and Sunday school for several years. After Erin Sterling left, I became the pianist.
Well, let me ask you also about who was the minister at the time during those years? Do you remember?
Brother Bell was the whole time that I remember.
Well, you remember
my growing up years.
You remember more than most people do.
Yeah, and then also he was a pastor over at Mount Hebron Baptist Church, where I now go to church.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Mount Hebron
Baptist Church.
In
Hale County.
In Hale County.
Where I am now a member.
Oh.
He preached over at Mount Hebron in the mornings and would come over to Clinton in the afternoon.
Oh, I see. And what's his age now?
What's his what?
Did you say he's a minister now?
No, he's deceased now.
Oh, I was thinking so. Sorry, I misunderstood you. But
at the time.
Who was your Sunday school teacher?
Well, I really don't remember my Sunday school teacher. I know when I was a teenager, they got me to be a Sunday school teacher.
Oh,
so I was pianist and a Sunday school teacher to the little folks.
Your mother was a Sunday school teacher for a long time.
Yes, she was. But I've forgotten my Sunday school teacher. I don't know.
Would it have been Mr. C.C. Franklin? Mr. Cornelius?
I really don't remember.
At one time, he said he had 9 girls in the class, and my sister Jeanette said she was one of them, and you were one of them, and the
Well, maybe I was. I don't remember that. I really don't. But I know at the time I got married, I was a Sunday school teacher for the preschoolers, you know.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you then. Hello, ma'am. What's your name?
Ruby Farmer.
And what's your maiden name?
Ruby Watts Farmer. Watts.
You and your sisters sang at the church for the Clinton homecoming?
Yes.
And tell me their names in case I missed getting them.
Okay, my sister Jean was singing alto, and Lucy was at the piano. I think we only got her back, but she was playing the piano. She sings a soprano, and I'm the tenor.
And that's the music that's playing in the background.
This
now.
was a practice session we had, Jerry. Um, it's this is one of the songs that we sung, I believe, at Clinton. I'll turn it back down. You probably don't want this on there twice, but it's we learned what little music we know from the washing dishes when we were kids. We've been singing since we was about 5 years old. I remember that scripture, the Bible says, "Suffer little children," and I know my mother suffered from all these voices that sometimes she'd say, "Please just be quiet." But we enjoyed our childhood, was happy. We were not, like our song says, we were not wealthy, but we had plenty to eat and shoes on our feet. So that song means a lot to me. Sometimes I can't sing it without crying. But we're just so happy that Jean is well enough to sing. Now Jean, we've almost lost her several times, and then I've had some very serious illnesses too. But we're glad we're here. We're all still happy singing. In our childhood, well, our father was a minister, Church of God, and we were in the Church of God. And then when we came to Utah, we moved. When we first got Dolly and Susan, they're both adopted, and when we first got them, we lived in a house trailer, and then we moved on Prairie Street, and then to Clinton, and that's how I met Mr. Robert and Miss Frances and CC and Winona and Mr. Marvin Porter and Domino. So they've been just precious friends of ours. We do not attend that church. On occasion, they've asked me to play the piano, and when Ann couldn't be there, and Sterling Henderson, so I did that. And we visit occasionally, not real often, but they're precious people, and we've just enjoyed the privilege of living in that community.
How long have you lived in Clinton?
Oh, Jerry, 24 or 5 years.
And where do you live there in Clinton?
We live in the old Garen Wheat house. Then Miss Lachlan lived there, and then we bought it from them. And so we've lived there since we moved from Prairie Street with Dolly and Susan, we moved to the farm. So Jimmy could have his 2 or 3 cows.
Oh. And
he's a farmer at heart, too.
Is that the first time y'all have ever sang in Clinton Baptist Church?
The trio, yes. Mm-hmm. It is.
Well, tell me their names, your sisters' names again.
Jean Griffin, and she comes from Gadsden, and Lucy Fuller, Jillian Fuller's wife. She has Tony and Drew.
They live in
They live in Aliceville. Mm-hmm.
Well, have you sang at other functions in Clinton besides that at the Clinton Baptist Church?
Not really, just little parties at the house or something like that. Church parties. We had a Christmas party, a church Christmas party, and we sung there, of course. And then Sunday night after we left Clinton, we sung in Aliceville at Lucy's church, which is the Pentecostal Church of God.
Okay, well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for having us, Jerry.
Ma'am, what's your name?
Joanne Porter.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
I married Curtis Porter this summer, and he is a member of the Clinton Baptist Church, and I go out there every 4th Sunday.
Do you enjoy going to that church?
I do.
How long have you been singing? You sang so good at the service today.
Since I was 2 or 3 years old.
Well, you done mighty fine. Tell me your name.
Jim Sterling.
And your parents' name?
James and Wilma Sterling.
And your grandparents' name, their parents?
James, Mr. and Mrs. James W. Sterling Sr.
What your grandparents was, all of your family has been members of the Clinton Baptist Church, hasn't it?
Not really. We really go to Methodist Church, but we always go to the Baptist Church because it was closer. All Methodist, though. So we just always gone to the Clinton Baptist Church ever since I was a little bitty kid.
Well, the Clinton Baptist Church has a lot of people from other denominations coming. That has been there in the past, hasn't it?
I believe so.
And you tell me you have one sister?
Right.
And what does she do at the Clinton Baptist Church?
She plays piano.
How long has she been playing the piano at Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, I'd guess that 12, 14, 15 years, I guess.
And she's married. Who is she married to?
Joel Henderson.
How many children do they have?
1. Jennifer Justin Henderson.
And What do you do at the? I know it's during the service that you besides going to church, you also help out there too, don't you?
Do whatever needed. They asked me to help take a collection Sunday, so I did.
Mr. Robert Barrett said he does everything, mow grass, mostly mow grass, and I guess you've mowed grass too, haven't you?
I have done it.
Painted.
No, I get out of painting.
Get out of the paint.
That's one thing I don't like unless you use spray tan.
Who was your Sunday school teacher, though?
One time, Robert Baird was, and C.C. Franklin, Texas, kind of all around.
You've had all of them for a teacher.
One time or another.
Did you join the Clinton Baptist Church?
I don't believe I've joined. They think I'm a member. I always have thought I was a member.
Oh my goodness, we've let the secret slip out, haven't we? Well, thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Curtis Porter,
And what's your father's name?
Lonnie Porter,
And your grandfather's name?
Jesse Porter.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
I'm a deacon at the Baptist Church, and I've been a member about 35 years.
How long have you been a deacon?
About 20 years.
20 years. How many children do you have?
2.
And what's their names?
Diane Porter, well, Diane Burton now, Kathy Lang.
Well, have you ever taught Sunday school there at the Clinton Baptist Church?
I have several years ago.
Do you remember who was in your class then?
No, I can't recall it. I can't recall the name now.
Was Jim Sterling a member of your class?
I don't know if Jim was or not.
How about Aaron Hamilton and them?
No,
They're going back too far.
Aaron and I can't think, Charlotte, I believe.
And
Charlotte now.
And James.
Who?
James Hamilton. Aaron and James?
No. Yeah. Charlotte.
You've been a deacon how many years, you say?
I'm married about
20 years. Well, who does all the work out there, the deacons or the trustees?
Well, we don't have too much work, but Edward Sisk is the chairman of the deacons, and he put all the load on him.
Y'all put all the load on him?
All the load on him.
And then he puts all the work back on y'all?
Well, no, we make him take the responsibility and do the work too.
Oh. He'll enjoy that. Well, I imagine you wasn't there yesterday, so tell us why you wasn't there.
Well, I had a water main broke, and I had to start on it at 5:30 Sunday morning. Got through it at 8 o'clock Sunday night. But I did get a meal from out there, and it was mighty good.
And that's like the old saying, the oxen is in the ditch, you got to get him out.
That's right.
And he was in the ditch yesterday.
He was in the ditch, and everybody was on my head.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, sir, what's your name?
Woodrow Jacobs. I'm a member of the Clinton Baptist Church. I joined sometime in the early 30s. We lived there at Clinton at that time, where Sebring King's family now lived, in another house, an older house. My parents are Walter and Lily Jacobs, both dead. Her parents are Vardy Carden and Annie Carden. My father's parents, Wash Jacobs, and she was a Garner before she married A. Jacobs. We lived at Clinton from 29 to 33 and moved away. And at that time, times were so tough, we didn't have anywhere to go back. And from then up until now, I never have attended church there, just occasionally. It's been a long time since I have been there. I intended to go to the reunion, but caught a bad health. I did not make it. And I'm sorry that I didn't, because I would have seen a lot of people, and I'm sure I would enjoy seeing.
Where do you live now, sir?
I live at Ralph, Alabama, right in Tuscaloosa County. Been there for several years.
When y'all moved from Clinton, did y'all move back up to the Ralph community?
No, we lived in what is up at Pleasant Hill, near Pleasant Hill Church, and that's where we where we went all during the Depression. It is a Presbyterian church, not a Baptist. And I left from there and moved to Utah, and from Utah to Ralph.
Yes, sir. Do you remember, I know it's been a long time ago. Do you remember who your Sunday school teacher was back in those days?
More than one. Ms. Riney Sterling part of the time, and Ms. Roebuck part of the time. Most of the time was Mrs. Maddie Roebuck. She was Maddie Roebuck and Mitchell and Morris and all of them mother.
And who was the minister? I bet you can't remember who the minister.
Mr. Curry.
You do remember?
Carrollton.
Yes, sir.
Was a minister there during that period of time. They had service. I can't remember whether it was once a month or twice a month, but no more than twice a month at that time.
Now, we're talking about what years again?
Back in the early 30s.
In the early 30s.
So late 20s and early 30s.
That was during the Depression years then, wasn't it?
Yeah, the hardest of it.
And do you remember any special events that y'all had? Like the 4th of July, did y'all meet at the church?
Well, the 4th of July, Mr. King and them used to always, King Brothers had a big barbecue and invited everybody. One time during the Depression, Clinton tried to get a ball team going, but it never was very successful. They never did win many games.
Yes, sir. And Clinton today is not like the Clinton then, is it?
Oh, no. At that time, I suppose there were close to, and around the neighborhood and all, there were close to 100 white people there at that time, and I wouldn't think it'd be more than half that many there now, if that many.
There's a lot more houses there then, wasn't
it? Oh, yeah, a bunch of old houses just gone, torn down, like Mr. Johnny Henderson, the Pierce home, and one or two that were down below the Kings there, and the old Macmillan house, the old Pippin's house where Mr. Clarence Pippin and them lived, I think it's torn down. And the one we lived in was torn down, and a new one built. There's a bunch of them just torn down.
The house where y'all lived in, where would it be now?
Where me and Stephen King lived now. We lived there in an old house that a fellow by the name of Bunnell originally built, I believe. And then he moved right in front of the Baptist church later on.
How old were you when you left Clinton?
13, 14, something like that.
Tell me some of your childhood friends back then.
There was no boys there my age. They was all older or younger. Now, Malcolm Roebuck was a little bit younger than me. And, of course, there was Walter Henderson, the Warburton children, and Elmo Colson did live up the road there for a while, too. He was my age. But the Baker children lived there. And of course the Roebucks, Morris and Mitchell, and that was about all. And there was a bunch of girls around there, the King girls, the Winstons, the Hendersons, one Porter. Of course the Sterlings lived there, but James was younger than me a little bit, and his sister was even younger. One time the Powers lived there. They had two girls, and they moved away. And that's about it.
Well, what did y'all, as young people, did y'all play in that creek over there?
Oh, yeah.
Across from King's Store?
We went in swimming out there on the creek. Everybody wore overalls or something like that. Most of them didn't have a bathing suit.
Did you join the church while you was at Clinton?
Did, while I was at Clinton. Baptized in the lake.
Mr. Jacobs, I hooked the camera back up because you and Mr. Robert was standing there and y'all was talking about how Clinton was in those days, how it was situated, about business and everything, and I want you to tell me about some of the, back in 29 and 30 when you was there, how many stores was there then, and where were they located?
They had the King store, and the two old maid Eatmans had a store.
Where was their store?
Right across the road from the King's. It was facing towards this way along the road instead of this way on the road.
It's facing West Green at that
facing
time.
West Green, that's right.
And it was two stories.
And it was across the road.
There's two stories. Upstairs, I think, was the old Masonic Hall. And a fellow by the name of Mr. Brood took this top story off and changed to one story and turned it around so it faced the highway.
Turned the whole building around?
Yeah, faced it towards Allison.
And there was, behind the King store, there were three old brick stores at that time, which had been burned out inside. They were, I was told, was Claude Pippin's, the Pippin's stores, three of them. And in the middle one, Mr. King had a warehouse and grist mill in the middle part. The other two were just standing there. and Mr. Sterling had a store there, joining the Kings, and later on, Mr. Walter Hamilton put up a store. And Frances Wheat ran it. Her and her husband, she later married. She was a Hampton at that time, but later married Gearin Wheat. And Mr. Lonnie King had a grist mill that he come down every Saturday and ran all day and into the night.
Where was that grist mill?
At first, it was across in front of what is now Porter's store. There was a little old grist mill building there, and a little old one long engine, I reckon you'd call it, that put, and run it. And of course the gin was out there. At that time it belonged to Mr. Robert Barnes.
Now the
Harrison Brew ran it.
Now the old gin is right past King's store now, like
That's
going to West Green.
going towards the church.
Between where King's store is, which is the intersection, and the Baptist church.
That's right. And and Harrison Brew ran the thing, for the Barneses.
Tell him who run it later.
And later on, the Colsons bought it, and they run it during the war. And I think they were the last one to run that gin, and then they shut down. I was not there at that time. But anyway, later on, Lonnie Porter run a store in the Sterling store. He and his wife Bernice. And they ran it until, I believe, they used to come to Utah and went to work. And they closed it down.
Woodrow, you remember Marvin running a little hamburger joint across from Lonnie?
Yeah, over there. And what was the clubhouse? Right across the road not from Lonnie, but Sterling store, but up a little ways. Yeah, he run during the war. He had a little place there that he ran. And I don't know what happened to that building, but the clubhouse now is in where the Eatman women lived at.
Earlier,
it's Kate and Jude Eatman.
Miss Kate and Jude Eatman.
What kind of the Eatmans here now?
These Eatmans in town? None, I don't think.
Oh.
But there was some kin, I think, to Curtis.
Charlie Miller married Tom Eatman's sister. And that was and then Kate and Jude was Tom Eatman's sisters.
They were. But those Eatmans, Miss Kate and Miss Jude, are buried at the Pleasant Hill Church up in the country there. And I was surmised by that they came from that neighborhood, but I don't really know.
Well, you earlier, before Mr. Bear got here, you was telling me about at one time over where the old lake is, they filled in now. At one end up there towards Ellisville, there was a big overflow well.
A great, enormous overflow well there, and it was so powerful that if you turned it loose, all the other wells in Clinton would drop in the pressure. And the King brothers finally put in a ram operated from it in a water tank, and they put water at the store and across the road from there.
When I first came to Clinton in 1950, that thing was still running, and it had more pressure than you could imagine.
Yeah, it had a little small hole in it with a wooden stake drove in it. You take that stake out, it had so much pressure. Us kids would try to drink water there, but the pressure was so big, so great, it'd blow you back. You couldn't get any water. And it was a pretty good job putting the stopper back in because the pressure was so great. I don't know if that well is still there or not. Is it, Robert?
It's still there, but it don't overflow.
Don't overflow anymore.
There's about 30 houses at Clinton and the Depression, and each one had an overflowing well, artesian well.
I remember at least between 20 and 30 artesian wells in Clinton. And it was, and some it just didn't flow very much, and there was a few who had to put a pump in. Mr. Porter, I believe that he had to put a pump in his well. But most of the rest of them had overflowing wells run all the time.
During the years, Jerry, we drilled up to, I think there's 5 wells in Frank King, used to be Frank King's backyard there. Edward Sis lives there now, and every time the water level dropped, we'd have to drill a deeper well. So there's about 5 there, and we text Edward Sis has a pump in the best tasting water, about the second sand. We had to go down to the 3rd sand and beyond. Had to go down 999 feet. Mr. Blunt drilled the well, and it's one of the only one of the 2. Get it straight in a minute. There are only 2. Marvin Porter has one up there near the Presbyterian Church, and one there at Clinton. most of the colored people have to come there to get water. Like right now, when it's so dry, they have to hold their water for their stock and drinking water.
Well, people that didn't live in Clinton during the Depression and went back now wouldn't recognize it. You take between what is now, used to be Sterling Store and the gin, that was a wet place in there. Water everywhere, just a slough. And there were some old machinery sitting out there, great big old boilers, and machinery sitting all around there. Our scrap iron people, I reckon, got them. But beneath one of those boilers, there were deeper holes there, and that used to be one of Francis's favorite place to catch brim, was what had been the firebox beneath the boiler. It was deep.
Francis who?
Francis King.
Francis who?
Francis King.
What's her last name?
She's a beard now.
Baird.
Now, I learn a lot every time I hear one of these interviews.
But anyway,
She never told me about that.
But it was a little old firebox. I reckon there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 foot across. And water was everywhere, and brim were all out in the water, but they would return to the deep holes, and that's where she fished at, was in there. And during the Depression on WPA, they put a ditch all the way through Clinton and drained all of this water out. I reckon it did a good thing, but what else it did, the water table fell and all those wells we were talking about went dry. But there was water all back behind Mr. Porter's, Winston's, and it was water run all the time, and that creek ran all the time, and it was full of good fish because it did run all the time.
Well, when they put that drainage ditch, that took the water out. And
Took the water out. I don't know that's what caused the water table to fall. I won't say it was, but it did fall. And after then, all of these between 20 and 30 artesian wells, they went dry.
I didn't know that.
Well, that's clear. I was wondering why they all went dry,
But it was water all between the gin and Clinton.
all the time.
And it was all behind. It was a steady stream that would come down behind where Miss Cora Hamilton lived,
That's
and went
behind.
up behind the Sterlings and the Porters, and then on the other side of the Winstons, between them and the Kings, and the Hendersons, there was a stream run out of there and run into the creek. And also over there where Mr. Pierce lived at, they had 3 pretty good little lakes there and a good well. It went dry, and those lakes, I understand, dried up too. Water ran from those all the time.
I got a question for
And
Woodrow.
Mr. Flanagan,
Go
where
ahead.
he lived at, now Mr. Flanagan was Morris and Roebuck and them's grandfather. He had one arm off, his right one, I believe, and he had a couple of lakes in his little pasture, and whenever the water dried up there, those lakes went dry.
We got a creek up there called Little Creek right at the forks of the road up to Edward Sterling's. One road goes to Mount Haven, the other to West Green. Do you remember the 2 creeks meeting when they had a flood?
Oh yeah, they'd meet there. Water would be from creek to creek, and water would be there in front of the Sterlings and on up almost to the Porters.
Mr. Edwin Sterling?
Uh,
J.W. James.
James-
James granddaddy.
James
James' daddy.
James's daddy.
Yeah, right beside the Porter's store.
Water would be all through there whenever it would get up. It was a different road then. The road wasn't elevated. The road was not as high as it is now.
Oh.
And it would flood. The water would get out. You could go if you had a boat, but us kids just waded.
Well, are the road systems the same then as they are now?
At the same place.
They're the same place, but they've been raised.
Same
They've
place,
been
but
raised.
they've been elevated.
They've been elevated. Woodrow don't know it, but I went to the store, Francis and I met at the time, in the rowboat from my house. He was next door to what he called the camp house, which is the Eatman house, see?
The rowboat.
You're talking
Yeah,
about,
the rowboat. I
amusement.
got moving pictures of that on video.
I tell you something that I thought was rather amusing when we lived there. Was an old colored man. His name was Os Eatman. He parched peanuts, brought them to Utah, and sold them every Saturday. And he was a great, long, tall fellow. He was taller than Lonnie Porter. And at that time, the Kings had a warehouse over in front of what was Sterling's store. The warehouse faced the road. The King's store faced the road. It went down the creek. The King's home faced the road. It went down the street instead of facing.
It faced Utah, and now it faces Aliceville.
But anyway, Mr. King sold caskets. And this old darky, he got enough money together and he bought him a casket. and paid for it, and he wanted to try it out. They got over there and they took it out, laid it down, took it out of the wooden box, chapped like I went along. And he looked at it, it pleased him, but he wanted to get in it and stretch out. And whenever he did, those other colored people that went in there, they thought that was the most terrible thing imaginable. The old darky wanted to try his casket out, but he lay down in it and stretched around there a little bit, and he told Mr. Lundy, he said, that's just fine, it'll be real comfortable. Got up, out of the casket, they closed it back up, put it in the wooden box, put it against the wall, and put his name on it to have it when he died.
And all the other blacks was just stunned you doing that, wasn't it?
But I tell you, they thought that was a terrible thing, a man laying down in the casket and him still living, you know.
When we moved back home in 1950, Mr. King, Frank King, my father-in-law, and we went over there to look at that casket house. He said these caskets cost, I think it was $10, and he sold them for $15.
They were practically nothing to know.
Well, I don't want to put the plug in for Liberty National like I've been doing, but that's about the same casket we were getting buried in, and it looked nice. But they're made out of whatever.
Something cheap.
Well, you know, when they couldn't afford the casket, you know what we built? Build a box, put hay in it, and lined it with, covered the hay with outing, you know, and babies too. I remember one time one of the tenants' baby died down at Montgomery in the hospital, and we had to get a permit from, again, this funeral home to go get it and bring it back. So we built a little casket right quick and put it in the trunk of the car. It was a steel berth, and brought it back, and that's the way we buried them back in those days. And then too, Mr. King would have us make a slab. We'd go to the site and make a slab and build a frame, pour the cement, and then take an old ballpoint pen that had wore out, and I'd engrave on there. I'd just write on there, print on there what the name and the date. He did that for all of his tenants. Didn't have maybe one or two back in those days that could afford to buy one, you know. So
yes.
we made them. I expect we got one, at least one or two or three in each colored cemetery around Clinton. He enjoyed doing that for his tenants.
And that's about my memories about that, Jerry.
Well, Mr. Baird, how did you wind up in Greene County, Alabama?
Well,
let me get out of this now.
How did I get to Greene County? I met Francis. I finished high school in 1939 and went to Birmingham and lived with my uncle that worked with the telephone company. My height of my ambition at that time was to work for the telephone company. And she left here in 1938 and went to Massey's Business College, and we met at the West End Baptist Church at that time. We didn't know it, but Walla Henderson lived within a few blocks of the church. So we got to going together, and after a while we got to visiting Greene County and her folks, and coming down on Sundays. And one thing led to another, and we got married.
How long was y'all date before you got married?
About 2 or 3 years. The war came in there. We were going together when the war broke out in 1941. And I didn't get a job at the telephone company. I got a job with Western Electric. Same job my brother-in-law Edward Sisk is with. So I was traveling, and I forgot to notify the draft board that my location every time. So I got a notice one day that said report, or we're going to come get you, or something like that. And I went in and joined. I was in Mobile at the time, working for Western Electric. And I still didn't let them know where I was. I got the next notice I got, I was on the beach at Salerno in Italy, and that invasion turned out to be a fiasco. We sat on the beach there 2 weeks. Anyhow, I got out in 1945 after the service, and we got married in 1945.
Well, how did Mr. Sisk? You told me that both of y'all worked for Western Electric. How did he wind up meeting?
He was working with Western Electric, and he got transferred to Birmingham. He's from Texarkana, Texas. He got transferred to Birmingham, and he met my sister-in-law, Vivian King Sisk, at a picnic And one thing led to another, and they got married and raised a family, and we moved down here in 1950. I left Western Electric in 1950 in January, and we moved down here, and let's see. After he had about 2 or 3 children, and his I believe he lived in a house there near Mr. King at the time, and after he retired, which was about 2 years ago. Oh no, after the last kid got through with school, Kim, then Vivian, his wife, started traveling with him until he retired, and then after he retired about 2 years ago, both of them moved back to Clinton.
Did you meet your wife before he met his wife?
Oh yeah, we've been married, I guess, about a year before.
Did you have anything to do with introducing him to his wife, Mr. Tex to Vivian?
That's so long ago, I can't remember. Jerry,
y'all work for the same
company. We both work for the same company, and Vivian lived with us in Birmingham, and she worked with TCI. Francis did too, all during the war. So
if you knew Francis before he knew Vivian, I bet you had something to do with introduction.
I probably did. He was a fine gentleman. We were looking up, trying to match up. Let the cat out of the bag, Dirk.
Oh, see?
See, but anyhow, we were trying to think that the Grange Springs or somewhere, famous places up there with Western Electric have picnics, and we had some good times together. A bunch of us. Way back there, hardly remember. Jerry, after I reviewed the tape, I made a mistake about the Miss Kate Miller. Miss Kate Miller was a sister of Charlie Miller, married to Tom Eatman, who was a brother to Kate and Jewel Eatman. Miss Kate Eatman ran the store, and Miss Jewel Eatman ran the post office back in the early 20s. I understand that Tom Eatman was the youngest sheriff in Alabama during those years. I made a few notes here to be sure I got it right this time. You asked if they were related to the Eatmans in Utah, and they were distantly related to Mr. Andy Eatman. You remember him?
Yes, sir. And what did Mr. Andy, you remember what he did?
Well, not what he did. I forgot what he did. See, he's a cotton buyer and a big landowner, as far as I know.
And his brother was a drug...
ran the drugstore, didn't he?
Yes, sir. What was his name? I forgot myself.
Know where it used to be, but I forgot his name.
I never forget, years ago, Mr. Barrett, I was cutting hair in a barber shop, and his brother used to come in and get haircuts all the time. And
Dick Eatman.
Dick Eatman. And he was a mess,
Oh yeah.
He'd just say anything, and Duck was cutting Mr. Gowder's hair. You remember Mr. Gowder worked down at that
soil conservation.
And I was cutting Mr. Dick's hair, and Mr. Dick Eatman said, Jerry, well, some people walked by, some of those workers, the women and some of the other people down there, Buddy Barnes and all them walked by, and Mr. Dick Eatman said, well, there goes the pie eaters, and he was headed to the hotel, for a break. And I said, pie eaters? What are the pie eaters, Mr. Eatman? And Mr. Eatman said, that's some of Franklin Roosevelt's pie eaters. They got that government job down there, and they show up to work and get the desk straightened up, and then they all go down there and eat pie for a break. And then they go back to work and shuffle the papers around and go home and eat pie for dinner and pie. Come back to work, shuffle the papers, and then take a break for another pie eating. And then later on, he was talking to Mr. Gowder from my chair to Duck's chair. And he asked Mr. Gowder what he did for a living. And Mr. Gowder said, I'm one of Franklin Roosevelt's pie eaters.
Back in those days, you could, about filling a prescription or something, you just go in and tell Mr. Dick what's wrong. You need to go back and fix up a concoction, and you'd get well.
He doctored a lot of people, didn't he?
Can't do that no more, but he did that a good many years there. Good old fella.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you.
What is your name?
My name is Jerry Drummond. I live in Utah, Alabama. I'm 45 years old, and I'm the one that did the filming that you'll be looking at for the rest of these interviews and the first part of the interviews. My father's name is J.C. Drummond, and my mother's name is Ida Lee Hamilton Drummond, and my grandfather on my father's side was Jess Drummond. Everybody called him Uncle Jess. And my grandfather on my mother's side was Eddie Hamilton. And we grew up in, no, I not grew up. I was born in 42, and we lived in Clinton for, I think, 3 or 4 years. We're not sure. Nobody can remember exactly, but we lived right in the house right across from front of Clinton Baptist Church. And I remember it while I was interviewing people and different ones talking about it, and my sister, Jeanette Drummond, talking about it, Jeanette Drummond Phillips. And I remember, that makes my youngest memory now. I remember that everybody was going to church, and I was standing across the road, and I was crying because I couldn't go. And I must have been about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old at the time. I do remember that now. And because, you know, when you're real little and you see everybody going into a building right across the road, it kind of upsets you.
I remember you interviewing Jeanette. Did you have anything to do with trying to clean the yard and the garden?
I did remember about the yard, but I didn't remember anything about the garden. But I remember the yard. The yard, we'd all get out there and we'd start at one end, go down through there pulling up weeds. And back in those days, it's harder for the younger people to realize, but we didn't have any lawnmowers. All we had was just pull it up by hand or use a sling blade.
Mm-hmm.
And so she'd have, Mama would have the sling blade, or one of the older sisters, Jeanette or Von Seal, had the sling blade, and they would be away from all the rest of us, so they wouldn't hit us with a sling blade. I remember that.
Well, that's good.
And Jeanette, I wanted to tell in her part of the interview, but the battery run out, that when Mr. Frank King caught them pulling the plow, my brother Tommy and Bobby, and probably Von Seal pulling the plow to plow the garden, Mama had Jeanette watching up and down the road, so when a car went by that she would holler and they would stop, so wouldn't nobody see them doing it, because Mama was kind of embarrassed, but that's the only way she could break the garden. Well, Mr. Frank King came up the road on a horse, and he saw him, and then he snuck up on him and then caught him flat-footed, you know. And that's when he told her, you know, not to be doing that. And he sent somebody up there to break the garden up.
Well, it's good talking to you, Jerry, and you've made a lot of interviews, and you went a long ways, went all the way over to Akron to get Maud Winston, and we sure do appreciate it. And the man holding the camera don't know what he's doing, but I'm fixing to cut it off.
Well, Mr. Baird, wait a minute. Let me just put a plug in here. If somebody sees this film and don't have a copy, if they'll get in touch with me here in Utah,
good.
They can call the Utah Hotel number that's still listed in the book.
372-9366, that it?
Yes, sir. Or write me, Post Office Box 147 in Utah, Alabama. And again, my name is Jerry Drummond.
What's the price of them, Jerry?
And the zip code is 35462. And the price on them will be $25 a tape.
All
and
right.
I'll just send them one.
That'll be fine.
Thanks, sir.
That includes postage.
Yes.
Well, my mother and daddy were Mr. and Miss J.D. Drummond, and they were raised up at Knoxville. My grandparents were
David Thomas Drummond.
David Thomas Drummond and his wife. We were raised up at Knoxville, and we came down to Utah to live, 5 of us.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I just visit out here a lot, and I have some kin people. The Porters and the Hendersons were all kin to us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And your name, ma'am?
Sue Henderson,
And your parents' name?
same as Mary's.
And grandparents the same too? Your sister, Mary Hammer. And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I just have a lot of kin folks out here. Ain't time not just Porter lived out here, you know, and some of the Hendersons on the Henderson side lived out here a long time ago.
Yes, ma'am.
So, used to visit out here at times. Always enjoy coming to the church out here.
You've attended a lot of services over at Clinton Baptist Church, then,
Yes,
haven't
I have.
you? Well, thank you, ma'am. What's your name, sir, and your parents' name and your grandparents' name?
Jesse D. Drummond. I'm 46 years old. My father is J.C. Drummond, my mother's Ida Lee Drummond. My grandfather is Jess Drummond. And my other grandfather is Eddie Hamilton.
How are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
We lived here in 1946 and 47, right across the street from the church.
You've attended a lot of services over then, haven't you?
First vacation Bible school I ever went to, Reverend Aldridge started it.
Here at the Clinton Baptist Church?
Here at the Clinton Baptist Church.
Okay, well, thank you. Bobby, before you start off, what's your name and where do you live?
My name's Bobby Drummond, and I live in Northport.
And what's your father's name?
J.C. Drummond.
And your grandfather's name?
Jesse Drummond.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Clinton Baptist Church, we live right in front of Clinton Baptist Church when I was a preschool kid. In fact, I started school there when we lived in Clinton. Right there. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, then we never joined the church there. No. But we went to vacation Bible school and went preaching there.
Okay. And who is this person with you?
That's my good-looking wife. 27 years.
How many children do you have?
Got 4.
Well, thank you. Hello? I want you to tell me your name and your parents' name and your grandparents' name.
I'm Joy Drummond, and I was a Sellers. My mom was Annie Francis Sellers, and my dad was Irvin Sellers, and they called him Hoss. They were from Bowler-G. And my grandparents were from Beulah. And it was Elijah and Annie Sellers. They lived on the high hill there in Beulah. And then my Bill Drummond and Annie Drummond were my other grandparents. They've been dead a long time.
Okay. Have you been to any services before at the Clinton Baptist Church?
I don't think so. Just lived around here, you know, but I've never really gone to a service there as I know of.
Okay, well, thank you. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Linda Drummond, and I'm from Tuscaloosa.
And tell me your parents' name and your grandparents' name.
Well, I'm kin to this crowd by marriage. My folks are from up around Samantha. I was a Falls. My dad's name was Noah, but everybody called him Shorty. Mother, Eugene, and grandparents from up around Samantha, Arthur and Fanny Falls. And then my mother's folks were up around above Fayette and Jasper. She was a Watson.
Oh.
I'm married to Tommy Drummond. And I've never been to church at Clinton Baptist Church.
Have you heard him talk much about it?
Oh yeah, I've heard him speak of it lots of times.
And your husband is going to say something to one of his old Sunday school teachers in just a little bit, ain't he?
Right, yes, he wants to tell him a tale he remembers from way back.
Okay, well, thank you. What's your name and where you live now?
Yeah, you ought to be ashamed. I'm from Utah, Alabama.
And your name?
My name is Ida Lee Drummond.
And your husband's name?
J.C. Drummond.
Tell me your parents' name on your side.
Eddie and Ola Hamilton.
And their parents' name.
Milton Hamilton was my grandfather, my daddy's daddy, and but I don't know what his wife's name was. And Mama's mother and daddy was James Cottles and Jim.
Bobby, you done been back in there?
Yes, sir. Hey, go back in.
I'm trying to think of Grandma's name.
Yes, sir. Well, what is your connection with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, we live down here right across from it, and that's where Jeanette and Bonfield joined the church.
I see.
I hate it because Jeanette didn't get to come.
Well, tell me all your children's name on the camera here.
Oh, Jerry.
No, everybody see it, they'll be wondering.
Bonfield was my oldest child. She got killed in a car wreck. And then Jeanette Drummond, she married Phillips. And then Tommy Drummond, he married Linda Falls. And then Bobby Drummond married Joy Sellers. And Duck Drummond's married Sonja Rester. And Jerry is married. He's been married twice, and he married Arlene Callahan, and then he married Linda Rogers. That's it.
Well, you've had a lot of memories. You live out here in Clinton how many years?
Oh, we live.
Get to Violet and Jack.
Oh, yeah, Violet and Jack is my youngest daughter, and she married Jack Clayton.
How many grandchildren do you have?
18.
How many great-grandchildren do you have?
I don't have any, but I'm expecting more.
By which son?
Duck's son is expecting a baby.
Yes, ma'am.
And what else was I saying?
How many years did y'all live?
Oh, we lived out here about at least 4 or 5 years.
Right across in front of Clinton Baptist Church.
Huh?
We didn't live out here for 2 years.
I don't know how long we lived out here.
All right. Your name?
Tommy Drummond.
And where do you live?
Tuscaloosa.
Well, how many children do you have?
I've got 2, a boy and a girl, Jason and Jennifer.
What's your father and mother's name?
J.C. Drummond, Natalie.
And your grandfather's name?
Eddie Hamilton and Jess Drummond.
How long what's your connection with Clinton Baptist Church?
We went to church down here. We lived down here at Clinton for about 5 or 6 years, didn't we, Mom?
I read about the first time you ever went to church, was it?
No.
Well,
this right here is where we used to go swimming right up there in the old creek.
What's your
right there is where Bonfield was baptized in that lake right there. Yeah, right there in that hole.
What's your earliest memory of the Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, I guess I was about 10 years old.
Is it concerning Mr. Lonnie Porter?
Yeah.
Let's go find.
I mean, to tell that again about what you did to me and Bobby and Cecil and Richard. And he says, and I told him it happened to Cecil long ago. I got your call. And it's been years ago.
How old were you at the time?
Huh?
How old were you at the time?
I guess I was about 10 years old. I think I was in the 3rd grade in school. And
how old are you right now?
I'll be 50 in February.
So it's 40 years ago. Now, Mr. Lonnie was, how was he connected with the church then?
Well, let's see. Then I was, let's see, what was it, 40 years ago? Well, you see, I was just 40 years old.
Yes, sir.
And I was. I never was a deacon. But I've been something in it.
When you in charge of Sunday school or something?
No, I don't know what I was. I never was a deacon, but I know the different things.
This was during Bible school, and we lived across the road from the church.
That's right.
And Mama polished us up with oxygen soap, evidently, because our face was shining like you money, you know. And it was me and Bobby, and Cecil, and Richard Cagle sitting on that front row. And we was all dressed out in the little white shirts, you know, the little tight pants that tight you couldn't hardly get in them. But Mama sent us across there, you know. And we were singing just as loud as we could get on that thing, and y'all was you made the comment, said, boys, y'all doing a good job of singing on that thing, but he said, but the next time, would y'all just let us sing? But what we were doing we didn't know how to read the verses. We was reading
just make a
we was reading straight down the book instead of going down, in the verses and everything. And I remember it just as well. And I've told people before that Mr. Porter embarrassed me so that I ain't never sung since then.
I done forgot all about that.
Well, this show happened, boy. It sure did.
I sure did forgot about it, but I asked him, did he remember that night that all y'all came over to the house and went to Storm Pit? You remember that?
Vaguely. I do remember
26
that.
of us. I remember counting.
Had water in
all the water would come down in there, in one corner when it real wet spent. And there was 26 of them, Mr. Miss Pool and farmers, and not farmers, let's see who lived over there. I don't know, but anyhow, all of y'all.
All 7 of us.
Yeah.
And but we used to
Denise and one on them. I know they were there. Yeah.
We used to pull suckers out of the corn for Mr. Porter out there. He paid us. I don't forgot how much it was now, but
it couldn't have been much.
No.
How are you kin to Mr. Porter, Tommy?
I don't know for sure. I just know I'm kin to him.
Your grandfather and his mother. Your grandfather, Jess Drummond, and his mother, Hazeltine Drummond, were brothers and sisters.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember Mr. Aunt
We're
Time.
second cousin. Now, if that's what you call it. That's what I call second cousin.
I remember Aunt Time. Them used to. They lived right over there. But Aunt Time.
Right beside of Clayton's house.
Aunt Time used to get after us about picking figs out of the tree on that thing. As long as you ask her, she'll let you have them, but don't go up there and get them without asking.
Name, sir, and where do you live?
Barry Shuttlesworth, Sesquicentennial.
And what was your father's name and your grandfather's name?
Mark Shuttlesworth and father's name. Joe Shuttlesworth and my grandfather.
Well, how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
I married Pat Winston.
And Pat Winston. And they lived here in Clinton at the time, didn't they?
Yes. Right by the church.
Well, thank you, sir.
Robert Hamilton.
And what was your parents' name?
My father was Walton Hamilton, and my mother's name was Hattie.
And your grandparents' names?
Grandparents were Herbert Hamilton and Francis Hamilton.
Yes, sir.
Now, they lived in the western part of Tuscaloosa County, but my family lived here in Clinton.
Oh, I see.
And he was in the lumber business here for many, many years.
Your father?
My father.
And where do you live now?
I live at a little place called Tallahassee, Alabama, which is about halfway between Montgomery and Auburn.
All right, sir. And tell me again your connection with the Clinton Baptist Church.
Well, I grew up here as a kid, and I fished in all the creeks and hunted in all the swamps, and I became a member of this church about 46, 47 years ago. It's been so long I don't remember exactly. I was a member here until sometime in 1957, 58, something like that.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. Sir?
I'm Titus Aldridge, and my father was Bud Aldridge, and my mother was Versie Aldridge. My grandparents raised me, Mr. and Ms. Will and Emma West in Carbon Hill. And I came to Utah, to the Baptist Church in Utah in May of 1946, and stayed until September of 1950 and went to Florida. Stayed 16 years, and then came back in 1966 and stayed 15 more years, which made me pastor in Utah for 20 years. During that time, I had a revival here at Clinton in 1947. 1948, we had the first Vacation Bible School that they had then.
Yes.
That's my connection.
Well, thank you, sir.
Both of you taking his picture?
I sure am, and you're next.
How are you?
I want you to tell me your name, sir, and where do you live? Name, where do you live, sir?
Johnny Allen,
and
Utah.
You live in Utah? Well, tell me your parents' name.
I hadn't got none.
And your grandparents' name.
I hadn't got none of them either.
Well, what's your connection here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
None at all.
Well, what are you doing here, boss?
No. Shit.
Miss, would you tell me your name, ma'am?
I'm Lucy Taylor.
And where do you live?
West Green, Alabama.
Where did you live? And what was your parents' name?
Hello. How you get my parents' name?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. and Mrs. Reuben Waters. Watters.
Yes, ma'am. And what's your connection here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I'm just a visitor today. So good to see you.
Oh, that's all right. Hi, Miss Aldridge. It's good to see you again.
Oh, we've had the best time.
But tell me your name on the camera here.
Oh, I'm Winnie Aldridge, preacher's wife.
Yes, ma'am. Do you remember when he came here for that revival in 1946?
Yes, I do. And I remember the Bible school we had over here, too.
Yes, ma'am.
We had a good time. We sure did.
I might have been over there. I think I was too young. You know, I lived right across the street then.
I believe you were too young for that. That was a long time ago.
Thank you, ma'am.
But we enjoyed it.
My husband is retired from the Army, but he works here.
Well, did you get over here very often? I filmed your birthday party last fall, and I know it's not right for a man to ask the lady her age. But what's your age?
I'll soon be 85.
Be 85. And you taught school here in the school system how long?
43 years.
43 years. And you still write an article for the paper, don't you?
The paper, I write for both of them.
Yes, ma'am.
Been writing for the Democrat about 60 some odd years.
And what do you write in there? The West Green News?
Yes, write the West Green News.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, good to see you. I'm still saving one of those papers about the history of West Green that I wrote.
I sure want to see that.
I'm saving one.
What's your name, sir?
Joe Level.
And where do you live?
Live in Utah.
And what was your father's name?
Wilburn Level. J.W. Level. Better known as J.W. Level.
And your grandfather's name?
John Level was my grandfather's, and D.J. Gander was my grandfather on the mother's side.
Well, how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Just friendship. Really no connection. I mean, we used to come here a good bit when we was kids.
Yes, ma'am. And yes, sir. Well, thank you, sir. Name, sir?
Mike McCullers.
And where do you live?
Columbus, Mississippi.
And how are you connected here with the church?
We're down visiting Robert and Francis Bard.
Yes, sir.
I just come down to be with them today.
And is this your family here, sir?
This is Martha and Michelle.
Hi. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. What's your name, ma'am?
I'm Francis King Baird, and I've lived here for 70 years next year.
Yes, ma'am. And what was your father's name?
Frank King. My mother was Clara Boyd Hollingsworth.
Yes, ma'am. And your grandparents' name?
Grandparents was William King and Mike Duff Hollingsworth.
And y'all live right here, don't you?
Yeah.
You're one of your husband was honored as one of the people that organized the function here today.
Well, he wasn't by himself. Couldn't be
and
me.
They should have asked you to stand up too, shouldn't they?
They should have, because I've been standing up for the last month.
And about 6 or 7 other people that worked hard. I know y'all all the time working on functions out here. And I see you at the West Green out there helping with the fire department.
Fire department too.
Yes, ma'am. And your home is right back over here, am I right?
That's my mother's home.
That's your mother's home?
Mr. Big sis live there now. My home's down the road that little way.
On down that way. Yes, ma'am. Well, y'all had everything well organized out here today.
Well, thank you. We worked hard at trying to get it organized.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Jack, I want you to tell me your name in the camera and your parents' name.
My name?
And your grandparents.
Jack Clayton. My parents are Mr. and Mrs. E.B. Clayton. E.B. and Eileen.
And your grandparents' name?
My grandparents?
R.K.
and Lucille Clayton.
We stopped. We said, Mom, are you going to
Irvin Norris.
She thought we were somebody asking the way to Clinton out here. You know,
my grandmother's name. What's my grandmother's name?
I think it's Ellen, and I recognize Jody.
What's her name?
Her name is Eileen Christie. What is Mama's mother's name?
Remember, she died before.
And her name was what?
Anna.
And what's your connection here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Attended Sunday school while I was a student in the 10th and 11th grade.
You live here right here in Clinton? And your father lives here also right now?
In the old Winston home.
And
one of the Winston girls was here today, Mrs. T.V. Hammond.
More.
2 of them?
Three.
I didn't, well, she's on
2
one
or
of
3
them.
of them.
Okay.
And ma'am, what's your name?
Also, we lived in this house right here where the mill is being served for a year.
Y'all did?
1976, 77.
Where do you live right now?
Moundville.
What kind of occupation do you have?
Hill County High School principal.
And this is your wife, Violet? And introduce your daughters.
Let Jack.
Jack?
One of them's not here. This is Jody, our oldest, sophomore at the university. Jan, our youngest, freshman at Hill County High. One missing that's a senior, Jackie, and she's missing with a friend at Hackleburg, Alabama this weekend.
Okay, well, thank you.
He walking.
Where'd you get that big old bullfrog?
We caught him over here.
Go over and show it to these women. Put it up close so they can see it. Sir, I want you to tell me your name.
Norman Gibbs.
And your father's name?
Henry Gibbs.
And your grandfather's name?
My grandfather's name was Curtis Newton Gibbs.
And where do you live now?
I live in Utah.
And how are you connected with Clinton?
Well, I married E.B. Clayton's daughter and moved over here. Me and my wife joined Clinton Baptist Church and went to Sunday school and church there for some 4 or 5 years. And I don't know no more.
and have you
Tammy's little girl.
attended many sermons there at the Clinton Baptist Church?
Yes, the time we were members of the church, we hardly missed a Sunday when they had church. And
Brother Bronny
I
Nichols was minister then.
Brother Bronny Nichols was minister of the church, and when I joined the church, I left the Methodist church coming to the Baptist church, and that's where I was baptized into the Baptist church in Clinton. And my oldest son, Clay, was baptized by Brother Bronny Nichols. And Brother Don Allen became the pastor, and my daughter Christy was the last person to join the church on the last day that he was minister of the church.
I see. And your father-in-law lives right here in Clinton.
My father-in-law, E.B. Clayton, and my mother-in-law, Eileen, lives here in Clinton, has lived here since in the early 60s. And now I'm back out here at Clinton. We own one of the stores here in Clinton, which is a Clinton Trading Post.
Are any of your children here with you today?
Yes, I have 2 of my children. Christy, look over here, Christy Gibbs. And my youngest child is Corey, and my wife Ann, she's here with me.
Well, thanks, sir. What's your name, sir?
Bill Glass.
And your parents' name?
My parents' name are Mr. and Mrs. Morgan R. Glass.
And your grandparents' name?
My grandmother's name is Martha Winston Pierce. Is her name.
And
Pierce Winston, that's it.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
My grandmother was a member, and my mother was a member of the church.
And they were Winstons?
Winstons, yes.
Okay, well, thanks, sir. What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Joyce Winston Glass, and my husband is Morgan Glass. I live in Birmingham, and my mother is here today. Also, her name is Miss Martha Winston. My daddy was William Arch Winston, and my grandparents that lived in this community were Miss Pierce, John Pierce.
Yes, ma'am. And that's how you're connected?
Yes, sir. I grew up in this community, born and raised here, and left when I was 17. So,
where was your
good to be
home?
back.
Where was your home in comparison with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Third house up the road from the store, on the left.
Up through those trees there?
Right. I think they said Mrs. Clayton family lives there now.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well,
good to be here today.
one more question.
Yeah.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 boys, and one of them's here with me today, Bill Glass.
And your other son's name?
It's Marty Glass. He's the oldest one, and I have 2 grandsons.
Oh.
Marty has 2 boys.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Right.
Hey, ma'am.
Ernest Porter.
And what was your parents' name?
Ollie and Scott Hales.
Hales. And their parents' names?
I don't know.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, my children and my husband belong to it, but I don't.
What's your
I'm
husband?
a Methodist.
What's your husband's name?
Lonnie Arnold.
Yes. And how many children do you have?
I have to stop and count them. I've got 3.
And their names?
Curtis, Nelda, and Glenn.
And is Curtis here today?
No, he had water trouble and he had to work.
Well, your son Glenn is here today, isn't he?
And he's here. There he is.
Hello? Tell me your name, your parents' name, and your grandparents' name.
Go on, dear. I ain't talking.
And then introduce your wife. This is Glenn. This is Glenn Porter. He lives in Utah, Alabama, and this is his wife, Mary Jane.
Go on over here and get some of these people that doesn't live around here now.
And your parents' name is Lonnie and Bernice Porter. Your grandparents' name was Jess and Hazeltine Porter. Hello, ma'am.
Hello, Jerry.
He won't tell me all that, so I want you to tell me.
What do you want me to tell you?
What's your name?
Mary Jane Porter.
And your husband's name?
Glenn.
This him right here?
I think so.
Well, tell me your connection with the how you're connected with the Clinton Baptist Church.
Well, I'm the daughter-in-law of Lonnie and Bernice Porter.
Okay. And you've
They are
attended.
members of the church.
And you've attended many a service there, haven't you?
Right.
Were y'all married out here, Glenn?
No. Diane, come back. Come back, Diane. I'm gone.
Oh, how far does Glenn, your husband, live from the church, Clinton Baptist Church down here?
I don't know, Glenn, you tell me.
About a mile, ain't it? Mile and a half.
Now?
Yeah. No, I mean, no, when you was growing up.
About a mile and a half.
Did you ever walk all the way to church?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever ride a bicycle?
Probably done that.
And how many children do you have, sir?
1.
And what's his name?
Lamar Porter. Go ahead and get him.
Hello? I want you to tell me your name.
Lamar Porter.
And your parents' name?
Glenn and Mary Jane Porter, I believe.
And your grandparents' name?
Lonnie and Bernice, that's right. Nana and Papa, let's go there.
Nana and Papa.
Nana and Papa.
And are you, what kind of occupation are you in?
I'm an RN.
You're an RN?
Work in the emergency room for the city.
Is that why you're wearing that today, or are you on standby?
No, I'm wearing this because I got to go work in just about 15, 20 minutes.
Well, people have gotten so modern and up to date on things nowadays. When I saw you with that outfit on, I knew what you did, and I thought maybe they got somebody on hand in case something happens.
Yeah.
Really?
You never know. That's right.
We can't run him off.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And your name, sir?
Oh, you know my name. You already talked to me once there.
But I want you to say it on camera here.
Oh, my name's Lonnie Porter.
And where do you live, sir?
I live right across that creek there, about a mile and a half.
And your parents' name?
Jessie Porter and Aunt Tyne Porter. That's what she went by.
And your father, Jesse Porter's father's name? Your grandfather's name?
His name was Jasper. Jasper Porter.
Jasper Porter, and his wife's name?
Lord, I can't think of it right now.
And Mr. Porter, how long have you lived here in the Clinton community?
Ever since 1924, you might say.
1924?
1 or 2 years I was gone now, working somewhere, but I've been here most of my life.
Where did your parents live before they moved to Clinton?
They lived up in on the county line above Snotty, if you know what Snotty is.
Yes, sir. What kind of work did your father do when he came here?
Farm.
He's a farmer?
That's all he ever did. Planting some cotton away.
You're a deacon at the Clinton Baptist Church?
No.
A trustee?
Trustee.
Yes, sir. Well, y'all had put on a mighty good, well-organized function today.
I'm just proud of it as I can be.
Y'all worked hard, I know.
Especially old Robert Baird. He was one of the hardest workers in there.
Well, Mr. Robert Baird's wife said on tape earlier she worked just as hard as he did.
Well, she did. She did.
Well, thanks,
but them two done the most of it.
Yes, sir.
And of course, Tex, he helped out. And of course, I wasn't able to work, but I donated a little for him to help somebody,
Yes, sir.
So we made it fine, and I enjoyed it, and we have a nice crowd.
Well, thank you, sir.
I would say my guess would be at least 250.
250. I would say that.
That's my guess.
I would say too. What's your name, sir?
I'm Ralph Baird. I'm Robert Baird's brother. From Jacksonville, Alabama.
And how is that how you're connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Yeah, we've been down here to revivals and different things.
Yes, sir.
For many years.
So
Robert's my oldest brother.
Yes, sir. And you live in Jacksonville, Alabama.
Jacksonville, Alabama, where Robert grew up.
Well, Mr. Baird really is a good organizer on these functions.
Yes, he
like
really
this.
is. He wants everybody to do what he says.
And
what he wants him
and
to.
they do it.
Yeah, mostly.
Do you?
No, I'm an unusual case. No.
In years past, have you and Mr. Robert ever gotten in arguments about things that he wanted done in his way?
No.
You never have?
Just no.
Now you know he's
I
going
live
to see.
in Jacksonville.
You know he's going to see this film later, so that's why you're saying that, aren't you?
He's been good to everybody, Robert has.
He has.
He
Thank
really
you, sir.
has.
I was just picking at him.
What's your name?
I'm Jerry Drummond.
Oh, yeah, you're the one who used to cut hair up at the hotel?
Yes, and you're a barber too, aren't you?
Yes, I have a barber shop in Anniston.
And Mr. Barrett's told me about you.
Uh-huh. Nice meeting you. I've heard of you. I've heard him speak of you.
Well, thank you, sir.
The Baptist church up here, she was.
Yes,
But
yes.
I don't think you need to. You want me to tell you?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. My mother was Elizabeth Scarborough, and she was raised by the Kings, the Frank Kings.
Yes, ma'am.
And so she wanted to come back today.
And where does she live with
She
y'all?
lives in Aliceville
In Aliceville.
with Sammy, her husband. And I live right out of Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm Carolyn Temple.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
And your name, ma'am?
I'm Dot Colson Griggs. My grandparents were Hendersons that went to church up here at Clinton Baptist Church. And my granddaddy was superintendent of Sunday school. And Winona Franklin is my aunt. And we grew up down here, Carolyn and I, in this area. I was a Henderson too.
Oh, y'all are cousins.
Yeah, we're cousins.
Yes, ma'am.
So we go way back to 50 more years.
Well,
We're so glad to be here today.
Well, good. My name is Jerry Drummond. We used to live right in front of the church there.
Did you? Oh, really?
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I guess you lived over there when we went over there. And when we lived down here and played around. You probably did.
About 46, 40, 45.
We're a little bit
in
older
there.
than you. We go back to the 30s.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Just a
went
few
to Sunday
years.
school there, the first Sunday school I remember going to in about 35 on.
Oh.
She used to live down here in the King house, and we did too for a while.
Oh, I see. Well, y'all do have a lot of members here in Clinton, then, don't you? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Your name, sir?
Albert Drummond.
And where are you from?
Monroeville.
And your wife's name?
Annie Ruth.
And how are y'all connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
I lived here when I was from 3-year-old to 9-year-old, and I went to Sunday school, and Winona was my teacher.
Oh,
We lived up there in the King house,
in the King house, which way?
the one where Stephen King built.
Oh, yes.
We lived there until he moved out. We moved out so he could rework the house, and when he got married, and then he moved into it.
Yes, ma'am. So you have a lot of childhood memories here then, don't you?
I sure do.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
I went to some baptizings, Sunday school and training union.
Where do they have the baptismal ceremonies here?
I don't know where they have it now, but at the time they had it in a little lake across from the stores there.
One that they filled in now, that used to be a little lake where they had services.
Yes. I went to 2 baptizings there.
And what's your parents' name?
Walter E. Jacob, Mr. and Ms. Walter E. Jacob.
And the grandparents' name?
Well, it would be Wash Jacobs and Mr. Vardy Card.
Yes.
That would be enough.
And sir, tell me your parents' name and your grandparents' name.
Big pardon?
Tell me your parents' name and your grandparents' name.
Albert Drummond Sr. and Bill Drummond.
Well, thanks. Would you tell me your name, sir, and where you live now?
I'm Horace Roebuck. I live in Utah, 06 Johnstone Street, coming around the city.
And what was your parents' name?
J.P. Roebuck. Pinkley Roebuck.
Pinkley Roebuck. And your grandparents' name?
Flanagan. Flanagan. They were John Flanagan.
All right,
They're
sir.
originally from Greene County.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, that's my favorite church.
Well, you was a member there for
long time.
about 15, 20 years.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
What years was that?
That's from 32 on up to about 35, 6. Somewhere along there.
37 or 8 when we joined Utah.
You know, our house is just right below that.
And y'all lived down here at one time?
We live right. That's where we moved from Peace County, right down there.
In 1932.
And your name, ma'am, your maiden name?
Evelyn Henderson Roebuck.
And your parents' name?
James E. Henderson.
And your grandparents' name?
Well, Bud Lamb and, what was my granddaddy Henderson's name?
George. I don't, his name I know.
I think he was a James William.
And how was he connected with the? Was he connected with the Clinton Church here?
He was not connected with the Clinton Church. I just brother that lived here. That was John Henderson, and raised his family here in Clinton, and that's how we got connected with Clinton.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I know both y'all have attended many services over at Clinton Baptist Church.
Many services here, and come to all the big dinners they have, and all the big doings they have.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
It's good to have you do.
Almost missed you. What's your name?
My name is Cecil Capers.
And your parents' name?
R.D. and Bessie Capers.
And your grandparents' name?
I ain't got no grandparents.
It always stumps me too. And where do you live now, Cecil?
I live in Coleman County.
Where?
Coleman County.
Coleman County. And do you remember many functions they had here at the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, it's been a long time. I came here. I was about 5 years old. We moved down here.
I see.
And y'all used to live here pretty close.
Right across from the church.
Yeah.
And what's your wife's name, sir?
Jeanette.
Hi. And these your grandchildren?
That's right. Yeah,
well, hello there. What's your name?
Michelle and Cecilia.
How many children do you have, Cecil?
We have 4.
4 children? Mm-hmm. What's their names?
2 boys, 2 girls. David and John and Teresa and Lois.
Well, thank you. It's good to see you again. What's your name, sir?
David Caples.
David Caples? Is that your father right in front of you there?
Yeah.
And I imagine he's in a big hurry, ain't he?
Yeah, probably is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
What's your name?
John Caples.
Is that your father that I just interviewed earlier?
Yes, sir, it was.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to y'all earlier, but has he talked much about his days that he lived here in Clinton and went to the Clinton Baptist Church?
I remember back when I was a young feller. Oh, it's been 15 years or so odd years ago, I would say, that I can remember. And we came, not real regular at the church, but I remember just coming a few times when I was young. But never many stories around that, but I do remember that when I was younger. It's been a long time.
You remember sitting in the loft up in the church upstairs?
No, I never did sit up there. Now, I remember Ellis when he was here, when I was here. He was a young fella then.
Oh, the Ellis guy.
Yeah, Ellis Tate at that time. I remember that. One thing I do remember is he was pastoring here at that time.
Did he have any hair the first time around?
Had a head full of hair.
Mr. Ellis, I was just kidding now. He's going to see this tape later.
And I do remember that. I do remember when he had a lot of hair.
What's your grandparents' name?
R.D. Caples.
And is this your family here with you today?
This is my wife and this is my son. That's my sister back there.
Hi. Hello. Well, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
What's your name? What's your name?
Oh, you don't need my name.
I do. All these people are going to wonder who you are if I got you on the camera.
Let them wonder. I really would rather let them wonder. I'm Mary Claire King.
And where do you live?
Clinton.
Right here in Clinton?
Mm-hmm.
And your parents' name?
Well, my parents have been gone so long, you don't need that name. I'm not a member of the Clinton Church.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought that's what you were trying to get, folks.
Well, what's your parents' name?
Hmm?
Your parents' name?
Well, my father was I.D. Hart, and my mother was Mary Boyd Hart, Sumter County.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, now, I won't go any more than you don't need to
All
know.
right, well, thank you, ma'am.
Might use it against you.
Now, this lady here has seen the camera before.
Oh, yes.
What's your name, ma'am?
Dorothy Minor,
And where do you live?
Clinton,
And your parents' name?
Mr. and Miss Caples.
And your grandparents' name?
I forgot. Miss Lamb, it's Thomas.
Have you attended many services over at Clinton Baptist Church when you was young?
When I was a kid, I had to go every Sunday because my daddy made me.
Y'all always showed up, didn't you?
Always. The whole family, all 10 of us.
Did you join the church there at Clinton Baptist
Yeah, I
Church?
joined the church.
Where were you baptized?
Right out here in this pond beside the highway.
There used to be a pond over there, wasn't
Right there, that's where
it? Do you remember the minister's name that baptized you?
Brother Bell.
Brother Bell. And how many children do you have?
I have 6.
Give me their names, please.
Eugene, David, Billy Ray, and Todd, and Sherry, and Angie. I think that's all of them. Did I say 6? Was that 6?
Well, I wasn't counting.
Well, that's enough anyway.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
And what's your name?
Linda Stevens.
And you was before
Caples.
you. And your parents' name?
Mr. Miss R.D. Caples. Betsy and David.
And grandparents' name?
Mr. Ms. Lamb and Mr. Thomas.
And where do you live now?
Foster's.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a postmaster.
Everybody's so proud of it. You hadn't got in the postal service, 4 years ago? Now you're a postmaster?
No, it's been longer than that.
Oh, that's just adding to it a little bit, ain't it?
Yeah.
How many children did you have?
2 boys.
Do you remember in years past going to the Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, yeah.
I always went on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Were you baptized at Clinton Baptist Church?
I was baptized at the Utah Baptist Church.
At the Utah Baptist Church. Well, thank you, ma'am. Who made that cake, ma'am?
Libby.
Libby Petticoat?
What's Libby's last name?
That's it.
Yeah,
What's your name, ma'am?
Della Allen,
And your parents' name?
John and Mary Hall,
And your grandparents' name?
John K. Hall Sr. and Ruth Hall,
And-
from Boaz,
And your husband's name?
Donald.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Donald used to preach here back in 75, 76, I believe it was.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
And is this your child here?
Yeah, this is my little 3.5-year-old, Justin.
Hi, buddy. What's your name?
Justin,
And how old are you?
take a picture of me.
I sure did.
Yeah, he's 3.
He's not camera shy, is he?
No.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Take
you.
another picture of me.
Okay. Go over now and just put your daughter, what's her name?
Joni.
Joni on thing.
Start it and then they will. Come on, you made the picture of the cake?
I did. And how old was she when y'all was here?
She was, well, he preached for 2 years here, and she was 8 months old.
8 months
when
old.
we left.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Where do y'all live now? Where is he a minister now?
We live in Trustful. He's not a minister now.
Oh.
We work in our church. He's a deacon in our church, but we teach Sunday school.
In Trustful.
Right outside of Birmingham.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, ma'am. What's your name?
My name is Mary Petticoat.
And what's your parents' name?
Urban and Audrey Gay. My
And-
father is deceased.
And your grandparents' name?
My grandparents' name, it was Mary Clemmy Williams and James Oscar Burton and Nicola Jane Gay and Thomas Wright Gay.
And where do you live now?
I live at West Green.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I'm not really connected. I'm postmaster here in Clinton, and this is my community, and I just came to join in with it today.
And you've done a lot of work on the preparation of the food and stuff here too, haven't you?
Well, I've helped. I made the birthday cake for the occasion today.
Oh, that's right. Somebody told me that earlier. It was real pretty.
Well, thank you.
And let's go over there and get your husband on the film too.
Okay, that would be a good idea. He's been resting all day.
Is this your husband here, ma'am?
It sure is.
And what's your name, sir?
Lloyd Petticoat.
And have you had fun getting ready for all this big event out here today?
Oh, I didn't do much.
You didn't do much?
No.
Well, your wife said you just worked real hard with it.
She's the one that baked the cakes, I didn't.
But you've helped in other functions, though, hadn't you?
Well, I helped with a few chairs and that. Not much, though.
Bill Frazier told me you was the meat tester. You like to eat up all the meat when he was cooking it last night.
I believe everything Bill Frazier tells you.
He said you just kept on coming over there checking the meat, and they had to cook some more because you ate so much. Is that true?
I'll tell you one thing. I had one helper, and I believe he had two.
Oh, really? He didn't do as much work as you did on preparing that meat, did he?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir.
He had more.
Oh, ma'am, what's your name?
Stella Allen.
And your maiden name before you was married?
Hamilton.
And what was your father's name?
Sam Hamilton.
And your grandfather's name?
Which one?
On Hamilton's side.
No.
and
I know on the Lamb side now, but not on the Hamilton side.
How's your connection with the Clinton Baptist Church here?
I just come because Bessie and David wanted me to come.
Well, you've been to the Clinton Baptist Church before, haven't you?
Lots of times before.
And what was the functions then? Was it revivals?
Well, we came whenever they had that thing for David and them when they installed them for deacons or something.
Yes, sir.
And then we've been to revivals.
You've got a lot of friends here in the Clinton area.
Right.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Your husband didn't want to pose for the camera.
Yeah, but I came here to Walden Hamilton's funeral one time too.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Mary Michaels.
And
I'm Robert's sister.
Robert Baird's sister.
From Snellville, Georgia.
And you came over here to be with him on a special day.
Right, I sure did. I came to be with my brother and my sister-in-law, Frances.
Yes, ma'am. And one thing we can say about Mr. Robert Baird, he knows how to put a function together, don't he?
He sure does. He's a hard worker.
Everything's so well organized.
And Frances is a good baker. Did you get any of that cake?
I sure did.
She baked 8 or 10. I forgot which cakes that she had here today.
They were so
delicious.
good.
They were very good.
And I even noticed Mr. Baird even marked off the places for the cars to park. And
they really cleaned this off good. It was all bushes out here a few weeks ago.
Now your brother from Anniston, I got Ralph on film earlier.
Jacksonville.
And I asked him, did Mr. Robert Baird try to boss him around in his younger days? And he said he didn't.
No, he didn't boss any of us because he was gone before we got up old enough to be bossed. Yeah.
We're just picking at Mr. Robert.
I know. He's a good boy. He's a good boy.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
I sure enjoyed it today. It's been lovely.
It was a beautiful day.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. Did you get pictures in the church and out in the foyer and all?
Yes, ma'am.
Vestibule? Oh, that's good.
Well, thank you, ma'am, sir.
Okay, my name's Donald Allen.
And your parents' name?
My mother and father's name was, my father's was E. Allen, Ed Allen. My mother was Florrie Roper Allen.
And where do you live now?
Okay, I live in Trussville, Alabama.
And what was your connection here with Clinton Baptist Church?
Okay, back in '74, I was called here as pastor. At that time, me and my wife worked with the Alabama Sheriff Boys and Girls Ranches, and I was supplying preaching over here. Then Clinton called me as a pastor, and I served for about 2 years.
I see. And have you had a good time meeting you an old acquaintance here today?
Oh, wonderful time. I tell you what, it's really a blessing to me to realize how extensive this church is by seeing this many people here and how many lives this church has actually touched. When you look at just the congregation and you see 15 here on Sunday mornings, but when you look at a reunion like this, you realize how just that love of Christ those 15 have just spread out throughout the country.
It just branched out.
It just branched out, right.
Well, thank you, sir. What's your name, ma'am?
Worthington. Lettuce. Worthington.
Yes. And
why don't you get my granddaughter? She's so much prettier than me.
Well, I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna get everybody for us over with. And where do you live now?
I live in Utah.
Yes, ma'am. And what was your parents' name?
James and Maddie Roebuck.
And how's your connection here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, my grandmother and grandfather lived in the house just beyond the Baptist church before it was torn down. We still own the property. No house.
And what was their name?
Flanagan.
Flanagan?
John Flanagan.
And they were members of the Clinton Baptist Church?
He was. She was a member of the Presbyterian Church at Pleasant Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
Grandma.
Well, you attended many a service over at Clinton Baptist Church, didn't you?
I did, and at Pleasant Hill also.
Who was the minister at Clinton Baptist Church when you attended?
Well, I don't know who the first one was when I first started. But anyway, J. Renfro Curry was pastor there when I joined. And he was pastor at the Baptist Church at Carrollton in Pickens County.
Yes, sir.
And that's where my husband and I married, in the pastorium at Carrollton.
Oh.
He was our pastor.
Oh, I see. So y'all knew him before he came over here then,
Yeah, we
didn't you?
did. He was our pastor.
Well, thank you, ma'am. And then, who is this person you was telling me about earlier? Introduce us. Is this your granddaughter?
This is my granddaughter, Paula. He wants to take your picture. Come on, she's a university student.
Oh, university student. And what's your name?
Paula Warbington.
And your parents' name?
Charlotte and Paul.
And they were married at Clinton Baptist Church, weren't they?
Yes, sir.
And where do you attend school now?
At the University of Alabama.
Okay, well, thank you. And who's this guy right here?
This is my uncle, Aaron Hamilton.
Hi, Aaron. I hadn't seen you in years.
How are you doing?
I'm going to ask you a few questions and get it on camera here. I want you to tell me your name again, and your parents' name, your grandparents' name, and where you now live.
My name is Aaron Hamilton. My parents were J.W. Hamilton and Hattie C. Hamilton. I live in Carrollton, Alabama.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I'm a former member of it. I don't attend Carrollton. I'm in Clinton Baptist Church anymore. I live in Carrollton, so I go to Carrollton.
Were you baptized here at Clinton Baptist Church?
I sure were by Ellis State.
And where were you baptized?
I was baptized at Aliceville.
At Aliceville?
But at the time they didn't have a Baptist Clinton.
But you joined here at Clinton?
I joined here in Clinton.
And Ellis Tate was a minister then?
At that time he was.
That's the first time around?
First time.
How many children do you have, Aaron?
I have 2.
Are they here with you today?
They are.
There's a young man standing right behind you. It's got to be your son. Looks just like you.
Yes, him. Randy.
Hi, what's your name?
Randy.
Have you heard your father talk much about his Clinton days when he was growing up here at Clinton, Alabama?
Yes.
What did he say about it?
I used to come up, go to the church, and we used to have Sunday school.
How you used to cut up in Sunday school?
Yes.
Did you ever cut up in Sunday school?
No, not much.
Who was your Sunday school teacher?
Cornelius Franklin.
Cornelius Franklin?
Cornelius and Ellis. Tex. He taught a lot.
Mr. Sis? And is your other son here?
Yes. Where's John?
I hadn't seen him by now.
He's here somewhere. I don't know where he's at now.
Well, I'll get him on the film later. Thank you.
All right.
Jamie and Susan came from Butte.
Hello?
I'm not very far to come.
Oh, you're not?
I'm close to Montgomery.
Close to Montgomery. Well, are you any kin to Aaron here?
That's the first time I've seen him.
Oh.
Bible church.
And where you live now?
Elmore.
And how are you connected here with the
I married Beulah Warburton, and she lived over here.
Oh. And how many children do you have, sir?
She had 1. We don't have any, between us.
And what's that child's name?
Susie.
Susie? Is she here now?
She's here.
Well, good. I'll run into her later then. Thank you. Is this one of the trustees or deacons here at the Clinton Baptist Church?
It's Robert Baird
That on the left is Robert Baird.
and Ralph Baird, his brother.
And Mr. Robert Baird is one of the dignified people that got this function together here today.
Yes, sir.
And you was the one that showed me this picture. What's your name, ma'am?
Michelle Rogers.
Thank you. How you doing, sir? Would you tell me your name?
My name's Melvin Durrett, and I just want to tell you, Mr. Drummond, how much I enjoyed being at this function. And I hope I'll be here when they have the next one.
And where do you live now, sir?
I still live in Utah, Alabama.
And your parents' name?
My parents were Fulton and Dorothy Durrett.
And your grandparents' name?
And my grandparents, on my mother's side, lived in Clinton, Alabama, and I visited with them during the summers when I was a young man, when I was a child.
Oh. And what were their names?
That was Lonnie and Leslie Key.
And so that's why I hear that's your connection.
That's my connection with Clinton, Alabama.
Well, thank you, sir.
It's been a real joy being with you today.
Mr. Durden, and this is your wife over here. How you doing, sir? What's your name?
Bill Marshall.
And where are you from?
Originally from Mobile. I'm from Brookwood right now.
Brookwood.
My wife is Texas daughter.
Texas daughter. And what's her name?
Sandra.
Sandra. Well, thank you. I got you on the film already, ma'am?
No.
Yes?
No. You go ask
Now, you remember me.
The lady that's sitting over there in that red dress over there?
Yes.
You go ask her all the questions.
I'm going over there. What's your name?
Shirley McCoy.
And what was your maiden name?
Hamilton.
And what was your parents' name?
Junie Hamilton and James William Hamilton.
And your grandparents' name? Hamilton side.
J.W. Walton Hamilton.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, I grew up here, went to church here.
Did you attend a lot of Sunday school classes over there?
All until I was 16 years old.
Who was your Sunday school teacher?
I don't remember. Martha Winston.
Martha Winston. Well, thank you.
I don't know, please.
Are you in kin to Robert Baird? Hey, ma'am.
Jane Shuttlesworth.
And your grandparents' name?
Martha Winston.
Martha Winston. And your parents' name?
Barry and Pat Shuttlesworth.
And where do you live now?
Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
And your connection to the Clinton Baptist Church is the Winstons that used to live here.
Right.
Point to the direction where they used to live. We can almost see the home, can't we? It's right down this road right here, right up Highway 14 here.
Right.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
And your name, sir?
Anthony Shuttlesworth.
And did you ever attend any Sunday school classes out here at the Clinton Baptist Church?
No, sir, haven't.
You never did?
No, sir.
And your parents' name?
Barry and Pat Shuttlesworth.
And your grandparents' name?
Mrs. Jane Winston.
And you never came down here visiting and attended Clinton Baptist Church?
No, sir. My parents were married there.
Oh. What's your name?
Tell him what your name is.
Roebuck.
And your mother and father's name?
Jess and Connie Porter.
And their mother and father's name? Mr. Porter.
His mother and father,
yes.
David and Mary Frances.
And
Drummond.
Oh, no,
you talking about Porter. Jasper and Mary Elizabeth.
Yeah, and he asked me who's his grandmother. I never forgot. I thought.
And is this what kin are you to Mr. Porter over here?
Just his sister.
You're his sister. And you went to church here at Clinton Baptist Church?
Yeah, but not too long. See, I wasn't out here long.
Yes,
I was teaching school. I was just out here 2 summers and a winter.
Yes, ma'am. And how many children do you have?
3.
And what's their names?
Dean, Eileen, and John.
That's Dean over here.
That's right.
Dean, did you ever go to church here at Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, well, when I came to visit grandmother and granddaddy on the weekend, I did a few times. The best thing that I can remember, though, is swimming in the old swimming hole.
And where was the old swimming hole?
Right across the road from grandmother's house.
And that was right up the road up here.
Right.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
And eating her good tea cakes. In the old kitchen safe.
And that creek looked as big as a river back in them days, didn't it?
It was.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss Robert.
I didn't know whether they'd ask people to tell anything or not, but
what's your name, ma'am?
Martha P. Winston. That's P is for Pierce. I was a Pierce.
You was a Pierce.
That's right.
And what was your parents' name?
John and Anna Pierce.
And their parents' name? Your grandparents?
Was David and Francis Drummond. And they were your great-grandparents, my grandparents.
David Thomas Drummond was my great-grandfather.
That's it. So,
yes, ma'am.
And his wife was Frances Drummond. I don't know if it was Frances Mays Drummond, I think. I'm not positive about that.
Yes, ma'am. And how long did you live here in Clinton, Alabama?
let's see, I came here in 19 and 20. Let's see, 5, 6, 8. Came here in 1908, and I stayed here till 19 and 49. No, 59. 1959.
Well, where do you live now?
In Tuscaloosa at Highland Oaks, Skyland Oaks. This is a retirement home for elderly people.
Yes, ma'am. And how many children did you have?
6, and they were all here today but one.
Oh, they were?
Uh-huh.
And their names?
Lucille Winston Hamlin, Hamlin, was the oldest. And then Ed Winston is here today. And then Joyce. I expect you knew some of them. Do you remember that? You used to live with Clinton, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am. The youngest one, I remember her.
What? Martha?
Martha.
Well, she planned to come today, but the last minute they decided to move. She couldn't get here, but it's all here today but her.
She lives in Seattle, don't she?
They're moving back to Seattle.
Oh.
They had lived there. And let me see, that's, I said Joyce, and then Pat Shuttleworth, his wife. Pat Winston's the Shuttleworth, and then Maud Winston Holston. And then that just left Martha, I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
And she's Martha Button.
Well, you've attended many a service over at Clinton Baptist Church, haven't you?
Oh, I did all those years I was here. I had 4 little girls was born here at Clinton.
Yes, ma'am. Was Mr. Winston, was he a member of the church also?
Oh, yes, he was a deacon.
He was a deacon.
And he helped put the top on that church.
Oh, that top's on there now?
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
Well, I know a man's not supposed to ask, a gentleman's not supposed to ask a lady her age, but I understand you was the oldest one here today.
Well, we tried to find out, but I'm 86. We didn't find anybody older than that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I had thought of the things lately when we talked about coming. One of my daughters was married at that church, and my husband was buried from that church, and so was my father. And see back, I thought some other things I can't now. Well, I was superintendent of Sunday school, and I also taught a class. That's about all I can think of right now.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
And my mother's name was Jane Winston. Father's name Archie Winston. My grandfather's name was John Pierce and Anna Pierce. And that's about as far back as I could go.
Yes, sir.
I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana now.
Yes, sir. I just got through interviewing your mother.
Right, that was my mother, yeah.
Yes, sir. And so you're connected to the Clinton Baptist Church through the Winstons here.
Right. Mm-hmm. I joined the church, I think, in about 1936 or something.
Well, thanks, sir.
Ryan.
And your last name?
Sabag from Tuscaloosa.
And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
I couldn't wire.
My grandparents are Ruth and Charles Wright.
Ruth and Charles Wright.
Mm-hmm.
And their parents' name?
They're my grandparents. Theirs is Ruth, Florence, and Jessie Wright. That's my grandmother's, and I don't know my grandmother's.
Okay. Well, how are they connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
They go there.
They go there now?
Mm-hmm.
And did you tell me your name?
Jenny Shelton.
Jenny Shelton. And you live in Tuscaloosa?
No, I live in West Green with my grandmother.
Oh, you live in West Green?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how you doing?
What's your name, sir?
Walla Henderson.
And your parents' name?
John Clifton Henderson and Lydia Stevens Henderson.
And their parents' name? And Mr.
My granddaddy was. They called him Uncle Bud. His name was. Can't even remember his name. My granddaddy was Edmund Walla Henderson.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I was brought up here in Clinton. I joined the Beulah Baptist Church, but moved my membership down here. Was baptized at Beulah, but the church had been activated here, and I moved my membership right away.
Who's your brother-in-law here? And that's a member of the church.
Cornelius Franklin.
Cornelius Franklin?
Cornelius Franklin, my brother-in-law. Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir.
Grissom. I live in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yes, ma'am.
And what else?
Hey. And how are you connected with the church?
I used to be a member of that church years ago.
What was your parents' name?
John and Lydia Henderson.
Yes, ma'am. And you I bet you remember a lot of good times at the Clinton Baptist Church, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I remember my dad getting up every Sunday morning earlier than in the rest of us and went to the church to ring the bell before Sunday school time.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, ma'am. Now, who are these people here? Are they any kin to you? Are these people kin to you?
This is my son, Richard Colson.
How you doing?
All right.
And his wife, Patsy.
My wife, Pat.
And son, John.
And your grandparents' name?
Grandparents? John Henderson.
John Henderson.
I don't even know what. John Colson was on the father's side.
How are you kin to Marvin Porter?
He's my uncle.
He's your uncle?
Yes.
Mrs. Porter was your...
My aunt, my mother's sister, and I used to live with them when I was little. Went to the first grade at grammar school there in Utah, whatever it was called. I guess it was Utah Grammar School.
Yes, sir.
And now I live in Huntsville.
And ma'am, have you ever been to Clinton Baptist Church before today?
Yes, I visited with Uncle Martin.
And when you was younger, do you remember coming down here to the Clinton Baptist Church?
A few years younger, not a whole lot. I'm not from this area. After we married, I'm from
But it's a good place to come to, I mean.
It's a wonderful place to visit.
Were you surprised at the amount of people that was here today?
Yes, I was.
I was pleasantly surprised myself.
Good crowd.
Hi. Have you ever been to Clinton Baptist Church before?
Yes.
Did you have fun?
Yes.
How old were you the first time you remember going to Clinton Baptist Church?
Last time I can remember was when, not long ago. I can't remember which time it was. Yeah. I think that's what it was.
And what's your name?
John Colson.
Well, thank you, John. Now,
Get in front of it, honey.
what's your name, sir?
David Capel.
And your name, ma'am?
I'm Bessie.
And you where do you live?
Up the road about 3 miles.
Up there towards Pleasant Ridge?
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
This side of Duke.
are you a deacon at the church?
Yeah, we will.
A trustee and a deacon?
Yeah.
And y'all how many years have y'all been going to Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh, good Lord. About 40 years, I guess.
About 40 years?
Yeah, buddy.
More than that.
How many children do y'all have, Miss Capels?
I had 11, but 9 of them living.
Yes, ma'am.
11 of them joined the church down here.
11 of them joined the church. Well,
all of them.
All the ones.
And Bubba, and then I raised him, and he joined the church, and he's here too.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the one we adopted, we call him. But he came back. He's here somewhere. He's helping with the chairs and things.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm tired. I gotta go home.
Okay. Well, we'll see y'all later.
I won't get one of those tapes.
Yes, ma'am.
I won't get one.
That woman wants to get out.
Marvin's birthday. I mean, I sure see it whenever I play the tape, you know.
Ma'am, I don't believe I got you on film. What's your name?
My name is Henderson, Wally Henderson's wife.
Yes, ma'am. And how are you connected here with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, Wally was a member ever since he was 10 years old.
Yes, ma'am. Where do y'all live?
His father's the one who helped with the jugs in the ceiling.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me about the jugs. What are the jugs up there for?
Yeah, I think his father was the first preacher they had here. He was a lay preacher. John Henderson, no?
It was back up. The church had died, and my daddy and Uncle Jess Porter kind of revived it along with the help of the Eatman sisters and Miss Fatty Carpenter, Miss Mattie Claire Pippin. When we moved here in 1925, the church had been inactive for 2 or 3 years.
Oh.
And
they revived it.
They got it started again. And got a preacher board house full that didn't have a church, and he preached a few times, and they called him. And
It's been active ever since.
Well, thank you, sir.
This week's magazine, Birmingham
Jules
News,
where?
about the church that told all the details. It's in an old issue, and I don't remember the year that.
Why were they put there?
To give acoustics.
Give acoustics?
Yes, it has the most marvelous acoustics you ever
It
heard
does,
in
don't
that
it?
little church. Not now. They covered it all up. They covered all, but just a few of them. with
Well, it must have helped out
sitting
some.
towel. Oh, it used to sound beautiful in there before they covered it up.
You know, I was filming from upstairs, and I was concerned about whether I would be able to pick up the sound on my mic, and I was really surprised how good it was.
Well, it used to be a lot better.
Oh. Now, who are these ladies here?
These are the daughters of Walla Henderson, my daughters.
That's your daughters?
Yes.
Yes. Can't you see the family resemblance?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can.
This is like a stair step up here.
Oh.
And where do y'all live?
I live in Birmingham, Alabama. Margaret Henderson McKeever here lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Betsy Henderson.
I live in Pelham, Alabama.
Pelham.
Good old boy town.
You call that pale.
Do y'all remember going?
Pelham.
Y'all remember going to Clinton Baptist Church when you was younger?
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of us down here on a picnic on the grounds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't remember the church. I just remember the lemonade and the tire swings.
I remember when I was 12 years old, I wore my first pair of real stockings to Easter service right down here.
You'll never forget that, will you?
Never. They were 5 shades too dark and hung in folds.
Was that true?
That was funny.
Was that true?
Oh, yes.
My mother gave anything we say.
They were hers.
Well, thank you.
From Todd.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
And what was your parents' name?
Maddie and Grover Carty from Rath, Alabama.
Yes, ma'am. And your grandparents' name?
William Level and gosh, can't think of my grandmother's name right this minute. Anyway, she was a corporal.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just a relative of the corporals.
And how long did you live here in Clinton and go to the Clinton Baptist Church?
About 27 years.
27 years.
Uh-huh.
And how many children do you
Reared
have?
4 children here.
And tell me their names.
James, Charlotte, Shirley, and Sharon.
Yes, ma'am. And this is your daughter on the side of
Daughter
you.
Shirley.
And she ran from the camera earlier.
I don't doubt that.
And I got Aaron, but James is still back there, ain't he?
Uh-huh.
Well,
He's
good.
still talking.
And who is this back here?
I'm Sharon.
That's Sharon. That's the youngest.
That's your youngest daughter?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't remember her. She must have been young when y'all left.
She was.
Eight.
Hey, how you doing, darling?
And where do you live now?
I live right now. I'm living in Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida. Are these your sons?
This is my baby, Tommy.
Okay.
And this is my sister Shirley's little boy, Steve. My nephew.
Do you remember going to church at Clinton Baptist
Yes,
Church?
I do. I've seen a lot of faces I recognize, a lot of people I knew.
Brought back a lot of memories,
It sure
didn't it?
did. I loved it. Wouldn't missed it for nothing.
Well, thank you. Hello, sir.
Hi, how you doing?
What's your name and where do you live?
Okay, my name is Billy King, and I live in Decatur, Alabama.
And your parents' name?
They've been deceased so long. His name was Wheaton King, and my mother's was Sarah Cook King.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
I was a member of Clinton Baptist Church when the first church I ever joined. I guess that was be about 1930. 37 or 38, somewhere right in there. And
you were raised here in Clinton then?
Oh yeah.
Right over there.
In this house right down here?
That wasn't the house then.
Oh, there's a different house there.
He lived there for a while.
And how many children do you have?
I have one.
And do you remember many times attending Clinton Baptist Church?
Oh yeah, every Sunday we attended Clinton Baptist Church, and I remember so vividly, Mrs. Roebuck was our teacher. Remember that, Vivian? And we would all go and take our pennies, and the thing that always got me was Mrs. Roebuck, which is Malcolm's mother, would always say, now, somehow I thought if I ever got to Cuba, I'd be with the first step into heaven. So I lived to get to Cuba. I didn't know what Cuba was. I was a little boy. But I was told if you ever get to Cuba, you've got it made. So I got to Cuba one day. I finally got to Cuba. And I says, uh-oh, this little town, I must have took the wrong step. I'm going the other direction. But I finally got to Cuba. And I remember Mrs. Roebuck was our Sunday school teacher. And
What Roebuck was that, sir?
Pink Roebuck was her husband.
Yes, ma'am.
And I am not a native of this area. I'm from Virginia. And he married me and transplanted me to Alabama, where we live in Decatur.
Have you forgiven him for doing that?
Yeah.
I bet you attended many a service at Clinton Baptist Church.
No, I never went to any.
You never went to any?
Baby, come here and we'll do an
Because we
interview
didn't
together.
marry until after he left Clinton and had gone to the university, and we got married after he graduated from college.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I didn't ask. Did I ask him how many children y'all have?
We have one son.
And what's his name?
His name is Wheaton. William Wheaton King III.
Is he here today?
No. He lives in Madison, Alabama.
Yes, ma'am.
What's this?
And your father's name?
Frank King.
And your mother's name?
Clara King.
And y'all live in this house right here, right here in Clinton.
Here in Clinton.
And how many children do you have?
I have 4.
And tell me their names, please.
Cindy Swan. Sandra.
Are you Sandra?
I'm Cindy Swan.
Cindy Swan.
And Sandra Marshall. Lynn Sis.
She was here
and
just
Kim. What's Kim's last name?
It'd be nice if,
Mormon.
It'd be nice if you could get copies of these.
She just got married in January.
Yes, ma'am. And your husband is Edward.
Yeah, Edward Sis.
Everybody calls him what?
Tex.
Tex. And he and your brother-in-law Robert Baird, they spent a lot of time this week getting this function together, didn't they?
Sure did. A lot of hard work.
And did you help them out much?
I did the cooking. I fed some. I did most of the cooking to feed him.
I asked your sister why didn't they say something about her doing all the hard work too, and she said they should have.
Yeah, they should have, because Francis really did work.
And I know it. Everybody knows it. And do you remember what's the earliest memory you have of Clinton Baptist Church attending the service over there?
I was born here.
Look at her blue eyes. She got that big, blue eye.
You said one thing you ought not to tell on that.
You went as a child, right?
Tell him when he edits the film.
You've been so many times that everything's a blur, I imagine, about going to church over there.
I was born in 1924, right here.
Yes, ma'am.
So I've lived here all my life.
Yes, ma'am.
I
Well,
have
thank you.
lived here all my life, so I traveled with my husband.
This is your daughter.
At the juice stand.
Okay.
This is your daughter leaving now?
I'm leaving.
What's her
This is
name?
the daughter leaving.
This daughter.
Sandra Marshall.
Sandra Marshall. Well, thank
We
you.
were raised up in Clinton Baptist Church, and we've been members for what?
Let's
30
see, our
years?
daddy did the Sunday school teaching, and a brother took up the collection, and the sister played the piano.
Well, who got the money?
And I taught Sunday school. Who got the money? Well, they never let us handle the money.
Didn't get that much.
You were the church, period, huh?
We were volunteers.
Volunteers. Y'all have had a lot of good memories of Clinton Baptist Church, didn't they?
Lots of good times.
Well, thank you.
Good parties.
Come see us.
Will you have
Would you tell me your name, sir, and where you're from?
James William Hamilton, Jr.
I want you to tell me your father's name and your grandfather's name.
All right, my father was James Hamilton. My grandfather was Walter Hamilton. Both lived here. Both are now deceased. Both lived here in Clinton for several years.
So that's your connection with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I was more or less born into the church. I was born and raised here in Clinton. Left when I was 20 years of age. Moved to Mobile, Alabama. And still live in Mobile. I have worked with the state Department of Public Safety about 23 years. All of my people that have gone from this area at this time. I do still have some cousins that live here in Greene County, none in Clinton to speak of.
Did you join the church at Clinton Baptist
Yes,
Church?
Yes, I
did. Who was the pastor here then?
The pastor at that time, I believe, was Ellis Tate. Baptized me. At the time I joined, it was a little bit of, we were in a transition period, so I think S.J. McCracken was, but I'm not positive of that.
Where were you baptized?
In Aliceville.
Aliceville. Mm-hmm. And your Aaron, your uncle, joined at the same time, didn't
Right.
he? So he told me earlier that y'all joined here, but you was baptized in Aliceville.
Right.
And you said you worked for the state. You are a state trooper?
That's correct. Have been for 23 years.
Do you enjoy it?
Well, yes, I like it. I'm probably gonna give it up soon, but I do like it. It's been I'd say a pretty rewarding career in every way except financially.
Well, we all hear about policemen being on the take in a big city like Mobile. You ought to have a big nest egg built up now.
That's very true. But unfortunately, I'm not one of them.
Oh.
Or fortunately, whichever the case may be.
Fortunately, moral-wise, but unfortunately, money-wise, you're not.
That's right.
I was only kidding, James.
I knew that.
You had a lot of good memories out here in the Clinton area, didn't you?
Oh, yes, I do. Sure do.
Do you remember all the family get-togethers on the homecoming on Clinton Baptist Church and things you did and all that?
Yes, I can remember when we used to have all-day singings, big Easter egg hunts. I'm sure you remember the Easter egg hunts.
Yeah.
I remember going to Vacation Bible School there, revivals. Church at that time was, a very important. Well, and that was the only thing that there was around here to do was go to church.
In a rural community, church is a social event.
That is correct.
How many children do you have?
Just one. I have one daughter named Michelle, who is 18 years of age. She's pregnant.
I was just telling him that I looked around while I was talking to somebody else, and y'all were laughing. I want you to tell me your name, ma'am.
Hilda Hamilton.
And you're married to?
James Hamilton.
And this is your daughter over here?
Mm-hmm.
And what's her name?
Michelle.
Michelle. Well, James was just telling me she's going to be going to university.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she looked like she's about 14 years old. Was she super smart or something?
Mm-hmm. Extra smart.
Really? And have you been back up to Clinton to the Baptist Church before now? In years past?
Mm-mm. Not in the past 20 years.
You haven't?
Mm.
Have you heard James talking much about them old days when he was living here and going to church here?
Well, I used to live here too.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
And what was your maiden name?
Payne.
Payne?
Mm-hmm.
And what was your father's name?
Lerner Payne. He lived in Bowlage.
In Bowlage.
Mm-hmm.
And your grandparents? Your great?
Your Warbington.
Fanny.
Yeah, Fanny and Sam Warbington.
Miss Warbington was here today.
No, that's a different Warbington.
That's a different Warbington?
It's the great aunt.
That's a great aunt?
Mm-hmm.
Lerner Payne in Bowlage is a brother of Buster Payne, right?
Right.
Who's also, Lerner is a brother of Opal Watson.
And Ruby Mower.
My wife, Linda Rogers, is Opal's granddaughter.
Really?
Uh-huh. So, you meet kin folks everywhere you go, don't you?
That's good.
And James said he's going to be retiring in about 3 years, and he'll be glad of it. Will you be glad of it?
Mm-hmm. I sure will.
Y'all going to do a lot of traveling?
No.
Well, he said he's built up a big nest egg on some of them kickbacks being a policeman all these years. How about that, James? On the spot. I was ragging about that earlier.
Hello.
Tell me your name and where you live.
Martha Williams, and I live in Mount Hebron, Alabama.
And I noticed you was helping out here at the function today at the Clinton Baptist homecoming.
Yes.
And how are you connected with it?
The West Green Volunteer Fire Department catered this celebration with our barbecue and beans and slaw, and I helped with the fire department.
Yes, ma'am. Well, y'all done a mighty good job, and the
Thank
food
you.
was mighty good, and I think y'all are the most organized community in Greene County.
We try.
Y'all are doing something every weekend.
We try.
And your daughter, I noticed, was at the church
Yes.
with the register.
Yes. My oldest one.
Your oldest daughter.
That's right.
And what's her name?
Leslie.
Leslie. Leslie, you gonna play basketball for Warrior?
I want to.
How tall are you?
5'8.5". 5'8".
And what grade are you in?
I'm in the 8th.
8th grade. Well, she'll be able to play ball.
She plays softball too.
I know it. Have you ever attended any? Tell me your name, sir.
My name is Edward Sisk.
And how are you connected with the Bulger Baptist Church?
I joined about 1958 or 59. I'm a fairly newcomer to Clinton by some standards. I've just been here 40 years. I've been here a lot longer than that.
40 years.
40 years. I married one of the King sisters, the baby girl, Vivian. She and I have been married almost 40 years.
Yes, sir.
Have 4 children.
And what's their names?
Cynthia, Sandra, Lynn, and Kim. All are married now. All have moved away from home, and we have them home sometimes. Those times that they are home are special occasions.
Did you teach Sunday school at Bulger, Clinton Baptist Church?
Yes, I'm the adult Sunday school teacher. In fact, we only have one Sunday school class now, and I'm it.
Yes, sir.
I'm the Sunday school teacher and the Sunday school superintendent and the chairman of the board of deacons.
I want to compliment y'all on the function y'all put on today. You and Mr. Baird and Ms. Baird and other ones that worked so hard at it, because everything went just right in order. It's a well-organized event. But I filmed several events, and y'all was the most organized I think I've ever seen.
Well, I was pretty lazy at working. Some of them worked a whole lot harder than I did, Robert especially and Francis. But I enjoyed doing what I did do, and I think it turned out real well. We had an enjoyable day and a good fellowship with all our friends that came back to see us and visit with us.
Yes, sir. Your wife was telling me in there that she saw some people today, like a reunion that she hasn't seen in years.
Yeah, some of the kids she used to run around with. She was a young girl.
Roebuck, Miss Roebuck.
And Ed Winston and Billy King and Doris and some of the others that were around here. Winona Franklin. Used to ride the mule to West Green.
All the way to West Green?
All the way to West Green.
That was a long ways back in them days on a mule, wasn't it?
Was.
And just a short hop, skip, and a jump now in a newfangled cars.
Yeah, just a newfangled car. Don't take 5 minutes.
I missed your son and daughter, and them jumped in a pickup truck and took off down that way with a rifle. You think it'll be long before they get back?
They won't be gone long. They're just down there target shooting, I imagine, and they will be back shortly.
Well, good. I want to get them on the film. I'll get them in just a little bit. But I see Mr. Baird pull up here now, and I know he's wore out. I'm gonna have to put him on the film some more.
That's his friends from over at Mississippi.
Yes, sir.
He goes to church with them over there when they go camping over there. They go to church, a little church near where they camp, and they met these friends over there.
Yes, sir.
And, I believe this is their first time to be in Clinton.
Well, thank you, sir. Would you tell me your name, sir?
Robert Baird.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I moved down here in 1950, and I've had every job except deacon and preacher. And now I'm cutting grass. Like I told you while at the first of the film, we cutting grass and just a general whatever needs to be done. Whatever needs to be done, we do it.
Well, I've filmed functions before, Mr. Baird, and I tell you what, that was the most well-organized function I've ever filmed today. Y'all had everything lined up for people.
Well, we started on it about a year ago, you know. You see, in about 12 months, you can get ready for anything.
Well, I don't know, but y'all done so much, so you even had outside toilets for them. Y'all had to build them, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we didn't rent them. We thought about renting them, but they're about the size of a phone booth. They're too hot, so... So anyhow, everything went off fine. Between the chairman of the board and I, we really enjoyed doing all this. That's Brother Edward Sis there, chairman of the board.
Yes, and y'all have put in a lot of time, effort, and money on that thing.
Well, we enjoyed it. Sure did.
Well, thank you, sir.
Enjoyed it. Sure appreciate you coming out, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
Doing all this. And let us know when you get them ready.
Hello.
Tell me your name and where you live.
My name is Lynn Sisk. This is my wife, Kathy, and we live in Tallahassee, Alabama.
In Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your father's name and your grandfather's name?
Well, my father's name is Edward Sisk, and his father was Charles. My mother's father's name was Frank King, and they lived here in Clinton, this house.
Have you attended Clinton Baptist Church very much in the past?
Yes, I'm a member of Clinton Baptist Church. I've gone there all my life.
Who was your Sunday school teacher when you was going there?
Oh, the one I guess I had for most of the time was C.C. Franklin.
He's taught a lot of people in Sunday school there, hasn't he?
He has.
How long have you been married, Lynn?
Almost 2 years now. The 7th of September will be 2 years.
And still holding hands?
Still holding hands.
That's good.
You gotta hang on to, you might get away.
He might be hanging on you, scared you're going to get away.
Yeah, sure.
Don't y'all go anywhere y'all next. And tell me something that happened at Clinton Baptist Church that you remember the most stand out, the most vivid in your memory.
Oh, let's see. I guess I can remember a lot of things. My older sister's wedding, I guess. The biggest event that I can remember there most recently.
Which sister was that?
Kim's wedding there was in December, so that was a big event. Back in January.
In January.
Mm-hmm. Those are the two.
What are you doing with the high-power rifle today?
Oh, I'm trying to teach my wife how to shoot one.
Did she do okay?
She couldn't quite hold it up good enough to get a good sight through the scope.
Hit the target both times I shot there.
Yeah.
Have you ever been dove shooting?
I haven't been recently though. Haven't been in the last 7 or 8 years, I guess.
Well, that's a different kind of hunting altogether, isn't it, Lynn?
Sure is.
They fly like jet airplanes.
That's right.
Or helicopters.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi.
Why don't you tell me your name?
My name's Ken Mormon.
My name's Kim Mormon. His sister.
And you're Lynn's sister.
Right.
You were married in when?
January.
In January. And where do you live now?
Tuscaloosa.
In Tuscaloosa?
And down here.
Well, you tell me your father's name.
Edward Sisk.
And your grandfather's name.
Frank King.
And tell me something that happened at the Clinton Baptist Church that you remember more than anything.
Well, like he was saying, there's been a lot of events there since we were growing up. One thing I remember was getting baptized, joining the church. And then last year we had the celebration for the elders. That was a big event. And then when I got married, that was a real big event.
That was the biggest event.
That was the biggest.
And that was in December?
January.
Oh, January. And who was your Sunday school teacher when you was going to church?
C.C. Franklin.
Mr. Franklin was also. Who baptized you?
Ellis. Sure did. He was preacher when we joined the church. Lynn and I baptized together.
Oh, baptized together. Well, thank you. Ma'am, what's your name?
My name's Joyce Bradshaw.
And where do you live?
In Tuscaloosa.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
My son is married to the very lovely Kim Sis,
Okay.
so I'm part of the Sis family.
Is this the first time you've ever been to Clinton Baptist Church?
No, it isn't. It's about the third time.
About the third time?
My son was married there.
It's a nice little community down here, isn't it?
Beautiful. He has one Thursday, and I have one the last week.
Oh.
I thought they
How you doing, sir?
All right.
What's your name?
Aaron Porter.
And where do you live?
I live in Clinton, Alabama.
How far do you live from the Clinton Baptist Church?
About a mile.
Have you ever walked to church?
Oh, yeah. Several years ago.
Several years ago?
Yeah.
Was it paved road all the way then?
No.
How long ago would that be?
That was back in 1924 and 25.
Yes, sir. What was your father's name?
Jesse Hardin Porter.
And your grandfather's name?
Jasper Porter.
Yes, sir. And are you a deacon at the church now?
No, I'm a trustee.
You're a trustee?
Yeah.
Is the trustee are they the people that tell the deacons what to do?
Well, if there's something to do, we get them busy to do it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Y'all make a lot of suggestions.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was good to see all the people there for the homecoming, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was real nice.
When you was going to Clinton Baptist Church, back in those days when you was walking to church,
yeah.
Who was your Sunday school teacher? Do you remember?
No, I sure don't.
Who was the pastor back then?
Well, I don't know who the first one was. Old Brother Curry was there for a long time, and he was the one that married us when we got married, me and Francis.
Really?
Yeah. That was in 1932.
1932.
Uh-huh. We moved here in 1924, and I was 12 years old at that time.
Yes, sir.
And we moved to Clinton.
What did your father do when he moved here?
He public worked some on bridges and things, and me and Lonnie done the farming.
Yes, sir. Was it farming as hard to make money that back in them days as it is now?
Oh yeah, but it didn't take near as much to do like it does now, you know. If we made a half a bill an acre, we thought we was doing big things then.
Yes, sir. But you still got paid like you do now, nothing.
Nothing, 50 cents a day.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, you wonder why you done it all.
Yeah, that's right.
And then why did you do it again the next year?
Well, wasn't nothing else to do. It's that I am.
Had to make a living somehow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. Ma'am,
Hi,
what's your name and where are you from?
Doris Lavelle. I'm from Austin, Texas.
And
I was a Henderson before I married.
Yes, ma'am. And your parents' name?
John Henderson and Lydia.
And your grandparents' name?
Edmund Waller Henderson. Gosh, I can't think of my grandmother.
I couldn't either.
Were they one of the charter members of the
No, they did not. My grandparents didn't live in Clinton.
Oh, they didn't?
No.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church then? Through your parents?
My parents moved here when I was about a year old, and I lived here until after I graduated from high school.
And then you left and you just come back for special occasions?
Yes, my two sisters lived here, and we come back every time there's anything special, and sometimes in between.
Yes, ma'am. Is your husband here with you today?
Yes, he is.
Let me get him on there.
All
now.
right.
Doing, sir? What's your name?
Gaines Lavelle. Around here they call it Level.
Are you in kin to Joe Level?
We're distant cousins.
And where do you live now?
I live in Austin, Texas.
And what was your parents' name?
Lee Level and Ivola Level. They lived in Gina, Flatwoods, sometimes referred to.
Yes, sir. And what was your grandparents' name?
Which one?
The Levels.
Gosh, I can't think what his name was right now. William Grady, I believe, is what his name was.
Yes, sir.
And I can't even think of my grandmother's name. I would call her Grandma.
Well, how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Through my wife.
Yes, sir. Well, where did you first meet her?
In high school.
Here in Greene County?
Yes, I went to Greene County High School.
Well, how did you wind up in Texas?
Well, Uncle Sam used my services for a while, and that's where I was when he got through with me, and that's where I decided to stay.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Hi,
What's your name?
Lillian Corley.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, Marvin and Frances Porter were my foster parents, or my adopted parents.
Yes.
We kind of adopted each other.
Yes, ma'am. And you come back for all the special functions here?
Usually, whenever I can.
And who was your Sunday school teacher when you was going to Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I never went to Clinton Baptist Church as a church like that.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Well, have you attended many functions there since you got married?
Since I got married, no. Between high school and the time I got married, I went to church there quite regularly.
Who was your teacher?
You don't know that either, do you?
Probably Tex most of the time.
And who was Tex?
Tex Sis. Never?
Edward Sis, yeah. Okay. Better known as Tex.
Every time I get a nickname in here, I try to get the name too, because some people might not connect them together, some of the older ones that have gone. Where did you get that pretty medallion there?
It's just a necklace that my husband gave me.
Where did it come from?
Joe Rose Jewelers.
I look like one of them ones from Mexico.
Yeah, it's just a locket. It came from Joe Rose.
I remember years ago, I went on a trip to Mexico, and she and her husband were the ones that headed it up and were chaperones.
We're going this March. You want to go?
Oh, are you going back?
Going the same route, Guadalajara.
Really? You going to see the two pyramids too?
Yeah. We'll go to the pyramids in Guanajuato and Guadalajara. We may even stick in Puerto Vallarta.
Get out, boy.
Y'all gonna hit them all this time, aren't you?
We might.
Are y'all in the travel business?
No. I teach school, and he's an architect.
We still having it.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed him today.
Well, that's all right. You got him singing.
Yeah, they ain't.
Well, thank you, man. Hey, Mr. Coach.
Hello, Jerry. How you doing?
I want you to tell me your name on the camera, sir.
Well, tell you your name. Everybody knows Sebring Colson.
And who was your father?
Gordon Colson.
And your grandfather?
Robert Colson.
And you came out here today to visit with some relatives?
With some Colson relatives that came to the Hendersons here and the Porters and all this bunch.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Tell me, who was your Sunday school teacher?
I was going to tell you about my Sunday school teacher, Miss Mattie Roebuck.
Miss Mattie Roebuck.
Miss Mattie Roebuck. She was a very good influence on my life. Taught me Sunday school and MYF and all the other different programs we had in church when I was growing up.
Yes, ma'am.
And then a little bit later, Ms. Winston. We called her Cousin Jane Winston was our teacher.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, ma'am.
That church up there had a lot of influence on my life and all the people here in the community.
What county are you to, Miss Winona?
I'm sister.
He was right behind you around the corner.
Hello, ma'am. What's your name?
I'm Mary Nell Jones.
And what was your parents' name?
My parents were Mr. and Ms. James Campbell.
And your grandparents?
My grandparents were named George Campbell.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
My husband and I moved to Clinton in 1950, and we lived here from 1950 to 1958.
Yes, ma'am. And y'all attended church there?
We attended church there.
Who was the minister at the time?
Can't remember.
Who was your Sunday school teacher?
Jane Winston.
Jane Winston. And how are you connected with Mr. Marvin Porter?
His wife and I were friends.
Yes, ma'am. And where do you live now?
I live in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yes, ma'am. And you've had a good time being back up here and seeing people?
Very, very good. It was wonderful to see all the people that I hadn't seen in 25 years.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, ma'am. We got him now.
Denise, that's you. You have to start the deal when he says so.
What's your name, sir?
You want a name or seat?
Your name.
Initial.
Come on.
Well, give me your name and then give me the initials too, because most of them call you that today.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Full name.
Honey, go on.
Charles Cornelius Franklin.
Most people call you CC.
Most people call me CC.
Yes, sir. And what was your father's name?
Robert. He went with Bob. Robert. You want his full name?
Yes, sir.
Robert Hezekiah
Franklin.
Franklin.
And your grandfather's name, his father?
William. He went with Bill, naturally.
And were they raised here in the Clinton area?
No. My granddaddy, daddy never was down here only. My daddy visited us since we married.
Yes, sir. And what do you do at the Clinton Baptist Church?
What do I do?
Yes, sir.
I'm a deacon in the church. In fact, I'm the oldest deacon. No, I think that's
right. Oldest deacon.
Yeah, I'm the oldest deacon.
In the Clinton Baptist Church.
Uh-huh.
And you've taught many a Sunday school class there, haven't you?
What have you done before? He wants to know what you've done before now.
I tried to teach a class over there for several years.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. What were they? Intermediates?
The young people, anyway.
Young people.
I've had a lot. I've asked almost everybody today who was your Sunday school teacher, and I've heard a lot of them say Mr. CC. So everybody referred to you as Mr. CC then, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. And Dan Williams called him Mr. Cornelius.
You mentioned earlier at one time you had how many girls in your class?
9.
9 girls.
Had 9 girls. And they're all married now, I guess, and got families of their own.
Well, which ones were the hardest ones to keep order in the class? Would it be the boys or the girls?
I would have to say the boys.
There's the boys. And the girls are more orderly than the boys.
Yeah.
Did you have something to do with putting the new top on the Clinton Baptist Church?
Nothing on it, just help pay for it.
Yes, sir. But I remember one guy was telling me earlier that his father and somebody else, or 3 or 4 other people, put the new top on the Clinton Baptist Church, where the steeple is. Ma'am, what's your name?
I'm Winona Henderson Franklin.
And what was your parents' name?
My parents' name was John and Lydia Henderson.
And your grandparents?
What was my grandfather's name? I can't even think.
It does me that way every time, too.
Does. His name was, I won't say Ben, but I'm not sure of that.
And how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, I became a Christian in the Clinton Baptist Church. I was baptized when I was a young girl, very young.
Who was the minister then?
Brother Watson, J.L. Watson, as well as I remember.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was baptized at Beulah because I was sick when they had the baptism here in the creek.
Yes, ma'am.
So I joined the crowd at Beulah to be baptized.
And haven't you taught Sunday school there many years since?
Yes, I taught Sunday school there a long, long time. I taught a lot of the young people. I tried to teach some of the adults. And I have tried to lead the singing for the years after my father died in 1941. Daddy led the singing, and Wesley Pierce did a lot of it. And after there, Wesley left and my father died. Then I have tried to lead the singing with Robert Baird's help since then.
Yes, ma'am. Well, y'all, how long have you been, what year did you say that you joined the church?
Jerry, I do not remember what year it was. I could look the record up, but I don't remember what year it was. But I was a young girl, and I'm 70 years. We'll be 70 in October. So it's been like 60 odd years ago. So that's quite a long time.
That's
around 60 years ago.
That's a long time. And
I would say I was around 9 when I joined the church.
And that's what you call faithfully going to church too, wasn't it? It wasn't
yes, sir. I was brought up to go to church every Sunday. I give a lot of credit to the way I have lived to my mother and daddy, because mother wasn't always with a big family. She wasn't always able to go, but she saw that we were all ready to go when Sunday morning came. And daddy went with us, and mother did when she could. And we didn't ask, are we going to church this morning? We got up going. And so the church has been an integral part of my life these many, many years. And Clinton Baptist is the only one I've ever belonged to.
Yes, ma'am. So, that's unusual, for a person to be devoted all those years. A lot of times people do what you call backslide. They get away from it a while and they go to other churches and everything. But
yes, sir.
You've been with it for 60 odd years.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I imagine you was a big part of but leading Mr. Franklin into the church, wasn't you?
Well, I'm sure I was, because he came here to this particular church. Because when he came here, before we married, he came from the Gina neighborhood. Is that right? Gina neighborhood. And we were married, so he joined the church, as well as I recall, before we married, joined the Clinton Baptist Church. So we have gone to this church regularly. We lived shortly in about a year in Aliceville, but we never moved our membership, because when we could, we were home on weekends.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we went to church here. Of course, back when we were real young, we had services only once a month, and that was in the afternoons. I can remember that as a child. And we always had revivals, and we always were there when that time came and enjoyed it. And to me, this church has held this community together. It's not only Baptists that go to it, it's all the different people of Clinton that have gone, and those people who have lived here and moved other places came back today to celebrate with us and for us to get to see again. And it has been a great day.
Yes, ma'am. You said you was from a large family?
Yes, there's 7 children.
Name your brothers and sisters.
Oh, gee. I'll begin with the oldest and go down. And Archie, who is now passed away. Rowena. Francis.
What?
Do you want the last name too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's Archie Henderson, of course. And Rowena Grisham. Francis Porter. Walla Henderson. Doris Lavelle. I came in there somewhere before Doris. After Walla, it was Winona Franklin, then Doris Lavelle, and Blanche Wagner. There were 7 of us. Now there is only 5. We've lost 2, Archie and Francis.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Franklin, did you have any brothers and sisters?
Mm-hmm. I had 5 brothers and a sister.
Not 5 brothers, honey. You didn't have 3 brothers. Pat, Robert, and Lawrence.
And
one that died.
Yeah.
Well, that makes 4, and 1 sister.
And the sisters, what was her name? Her last name.
O'Brien.
And they all lived Do they live in Greene County?
No, in Tuscaloosa County. She does, yeah.
And so does Lodge, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
The brother does too. He has only one sister and one brother left. The rest of her passed away. Only in dollars.
Mr. Franklin, my father told me that when he was about 16 years old, that you really impressed him. He said you was a tough man. Said one night he was somewhere at a party or something somewhere, and some man was giving you a hard time, and you grabbed him and you hit him so hard that you knocked him slam out of his jacket, knocked him all the way across the room. He hit the wall and slid down on the floor. And said you still had part of his jacket left in your left hand. Is that true?
If he said it is, yeah.
He said that always impressed him. He knew then never to mess with you. I appreciate y'all letting me come by here and get you on the film because y'all. This picture was painted on this glass mirror by Nelda Porter, daughter of Lonnie and Bernice Porter. This Bible is the original Bible, I was told, for the church here. You can see the binder on it is kind of almost like a carved version. What's your name?
Jeanette Drummond Phillips.
And your parents' name?
Ida Lee and J.C. Drummond.
And your grandparents' name?
On my mother's side or my daddy's side?
Both of them.
Oh, on both. Okay, Jesse David Drummond and Miss Ella Drummond.
Okay, and Jesse David was known as Jess.
That's right, Mr. Jess.
Okay, how are you connected with the Clinton Baptist Church?
Well, when I guess, Mama, when I was 11 years old, we moved there, didn't we?
I think so.
I was 11. Actually, we lived all over the county, and I hate to say this, but it was just like when the rent came due, we moved. That's a joke.
Mama.
But we moved from Mount Hebron, which was the edge of the world, to Clinton, and we were really uptown then.
We thought we was in paradise.
We really did. We lived right across the street from the Clinton Baptist Church, and Mom and Daddy and all of us 7 children lived in that big old rambling house, and when on Sunday, Mama made sure that we were always went across the street to the Baptist church, and that was where I made a public profession of my faith in Jesus Christ. I wasn't baptized there. I was baptized in the Utah Baptist Church, but that's where I accepted Christ as my Savior. We had it was a revival, and I can't remember who the pastor was that came in.
Who was the pastor at the time?
I believe it was Mr. Bell.
Mr. Bell?
He seemed to be a big, tall, rotund, jolly man. Is that right, Mama?
He was a pastor at Clinton Baptist Church.
Yes, he was. But we had there was a pastor to come in for the revival, and I remember that it seems that the year before, Bonsell had accepted Christ as her personal Savior there, and then that following summer, I did. Bonsell was baptized in the lake down there across from Mr. King's store. Mm-hmm. But now, the year that I accepted Christ, we had gotten up a little uptown then, and so we were baptized at the Utah Baptist Church. They let us use their baptistry.
But the Clinton minister's the one that baptized?
No, I believe. I don't believe he was. I really can't remember who baptized me actually, but I made the public profession of faith there. But we lived there. It was over a year, wasn't it, Mama?
I thought we lived there 4 or 5 years, but
well,
said 3.
Well, we moved to Utah when I was 13, and I was 11 then, so it must have been about 2. But we had some happy times there in Clinton. We were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. I'll tell you one thing, Jerry. When we lived there at that old house, and I believe that Lonnie Porter used to live there at one time, didn't he? Lonnie must have been Lonnie Porter. And we were so poor then, and Daddy was off working, and one day Mama had the boys all pulling the plow out in a little garden spot, and Mr. Frank King came around the corner of the house on a horse. He was riding a horse, and he saw us doing that, or Mama doing it, and he just said, "Ms. Drummond," he said, "you stop that right now." He said, "I'm going to send somebody up here to fix your garden spot." And he did, didn't he, Mama?
It was nice of him to do that.
Yes, it was. It really was. But we had some happy times there. You know that, if you remember that old house, and it's gone now, but when it was there and the yard was so grown up and all, and Mama would have all of her young ones out there in the yard, and she'd say, "Now, we're going to clean up this yard, and then at the end of the week, we're going to have a picnic." Well, that just thrilled us to death. And of course we did. You know, we cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. And you know, it took a long time to clean up a yard like that. And so we had some real good times there. And it was at that time that I got my first job when I was at Clinton. And Mr. Frank King, and I believe it was Mr. Charlie King. Was it Charlie King? And what was the other brother? Mr. Lonnie King. And they let me clerk there at their store for a little while, and I never will forget Mr. Lonnie King told me, he said, then this was advice that he was giving me. He said, now I want to tell you now, he said, before you start, he said, Mr. Charlie and Mr. Frank can't stand chewing gum. And he said, don't come in here chewing gum. And so I always remembered that, not to ever go to work chewing gum. Yeah. And I really believe that Mr. Lonnie probably couldn't stand it.
Well, who was your Sunday school teacher at Clinton Baptist Church?
Now, you know, I just really cannot remember who it was, unless it could have been Mr. Franklin.
And what did you call him at the time? You remember what everybody used to call him? Mr. C.C.
Well, I remember that his name was Cornelius. and I thought that was a most unusual name. But I can't remember. I can't remember that.
Early on the film, Mr. Franklin told me that one time he had 9 girls in his Sunday school.
Well, I'm sure that I was one of them. It was me and Von Seal, I know that, and all the Capleses, and probably Maud Winston, and who else?
Her sister, Martha.
Martha, and then I remember
What's that you got in your hand?
the red light's going.
Okay. Sir, would you tell me your name and how you affiliated with this church?
Robert Baird. I'm the grass cutter.
You're one of the deacons?
No. Help lead the singing, help do anything but preach.
I understand you're one of the main organizers of this event.
Anything to have a good time, I'm ready for it.
Well, thank you, sir.
In the name of the Lord.
Would you tell me your name, sir?
I'm Ellis Tate, pastor of this church.
Well, y'all got a big event today.
We have a large event. We've got a nice crowd. We're expecting a full house.
And where do you live, sir?
I live in Aliceville.
And how long have you been the minister here?
Well, I started in 1956 the first time. Was here about 4 years, went in the Air Force for 4, came back for about 3, left for a period of time and been back 2 now.
Thank you.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the many blessings that you've given to us all of our lives. We're thankful for this church and for those who have gathered here this morning. We might join our hearts and our all in worshiping you in truth and in spirit, that your name might be lifted up and be praised this morning for all that you've done for us as a person and as a part of this church. Father, many of these have passed through the doors of this church and gone on into other communities. The things that you have done and said to them in their lives here have meant much to them, and for that we're thankful. We thank you for preserving this old church, this old building, and for letting it mean so much to us in our own personal lives. And as we worship this morning, may we realize that because of your grace and mercy toward us, these things have been possible. And may we truly lift our voices in songs of praise and thanksgiving unto you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Sing this morning, I hope you'll join in. You may not be able to get to the hymn book, but I think you'll all find most of the songs you know. Please do participate. Our first hymn this morning is 368. We'll sing the first, second, and last hymn. Brethren, we get back to work. 368.
look out this morning, we see the church full, and we're glad for that. It's not often in churches like us out in the country that we can find our seats all filled on a Sunday morning unless we have some sad occasion. It certainly is good to see all of these faces this morning in this church with one thing in common, that's to worship the Lord and fellowship together. A lot of these faces I've seen practically all my life. Some of you were over in Allisville and we've grown up together, haven't we? Some of you down here, I feel like we've grown up together. I look over here and I find highway patrol and you are still taking care of the highway. I'm glad he's down 4 South instead of around here. We grew up together. All these big, strapping boys and young men around here. A lot of things have taken place in a period of time since I first came down here, just fresh out of high school. Well, S.J. was commenting to me outside and said, well, I see well, you've been down here 3 times. I said, yeah, they keep on trying me, thinking they're going to get something better every time. So it's good to see you. It's good to have all of you here. And there are a number of people that have been very important to get this function going today. They worked hard, sending out letters, putting up chairs, cleaning the yards, cleaning the camp house, just doing so many things to have this day possible and make it a success that it is. So we want to thank each one of you. You know who you are. I'm not going to bother to list their names. Some of them are already listed in the program. I'm not going to call out this morning. We thank each one personally, and we do thank them again this morning. I want you to join in with us as we worship. The songs that we've chosen, the songs that you already know by heart, so just sing out as Brother Lawrence leads. We're happy to have 2 of our 4 pastors with us that have been here during the period of time between when I was here the first time. So we're asking them to take part in this program as their part comes up. So we will take this time.
Glad to be back. I'm Don Allen, the one that I don't know. There's a whole lot bigger congregation that I have around here. You turn with me, please, to responsive reading. Number 1. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands.
Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing.
Know ye that the Lord is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture.
Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name.
For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations.
Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee.
Let the nations be glad and sing for joy. For thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon earth.
Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee.
Then shall the earth yield her increase, and God, even our God, shall bless us.
God shall bless us, and all the kings of the earth shall fear him.
Song, I love number 93, the old rugged cross. You show me to sing the first, second, and last stanza, number 93.
one little change in the program at this time. I came down here the first time in 1956, fresh out of high school, and most of you were a lot younger looking at that time. Sunday afternoons, there was a certain individual that would always go down to the big pasture and sometimes ride horses and sometimes shoot a gun. Spent a lot of time in fellowship. Next thing you know, his brother-in-law was going along with us and his two girls, and we quit shooting a gun. That's one of them started showing us up. But down through the years, as I've been down here, we've had a lot of church officials, elected deacons, elected officials, teachers in Sunday school officials, but we've always had an unofficial pastor's right hand. And this activity today has been made possible because one of these individuals has taken upon himself to just shoulder the load and do an awful lot. A lot of running back and forth, a lot of little jobs that a lot of the rest of us forgot about. He thought of. Robert, I want you to stand. There, stand up. You couldn't have made it, Robert, without you today. After the service this morning, we have back here in these envelopes a history of the church. We have about 100 copies or so back here. So if each family would get one, or each head of a family, I think we'd have enough to go around. We also have a copy of the local county paper that has the story in it. Are they have it? Well, that's Jenny. Give you your copy now. We don't worry about it. But always already has it. So we'd like you to take that for those of you ahead of the family. Let's go back and get you one this morning after the services. Most of you know the story already at the church. It's an interesting story. I'm sure you'll enjoy passing them down to your children. We're happy to have some members right here in our community, two of them. One from the city of Hallettsville. We're happy to have them come and present to us now some special music. We're going to that.
Thank y'all for letting me be part of the celebration today. We're singing Thank You, Lord, for Your Blessings. Couldn't have this today if it wasn't for Your blessings.
Thank you.
read from the 12th chapter of Romans. If you have your Bibles, please turn. 12th chapter of Romans, verse 1 and following. I beseech ye, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought, but to think soberly, according as God has set will every man to measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we being many are one body in Christ, every one member of one another. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that's given to us, whether prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith. Or ministry, let us wait on our ministry. Or he that teacheth on teaching. Or he that exhorteth on exhortation. He that giveth, let him judge with solicitude. He that ruleth with diligence. He that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. Let love be without dissimulation. For that which is evil cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instantly in prayer. Distributing to the necessity of saints, given to hospitality. Let them that persecute you bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of your strength. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. And if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourself, but rather give place to the rest. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt be cold of fire on his head, and be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. May the Lord bless the reading of His word. May we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come with thankful hearts this morning, remembering the times that we were here, and remember many that have gone on each day that are not here today. And our hearts are grieved because of that. We would like to see them again. Heavenly Father, we know that one of these days we shall. But until that time comes, we are admonished and exhorted to carry on and do the best we know how with the help of the Holy Spirit being our guide and our stay, helping us to do the work that you're called to do. Thank you for this old church. Heavenly Father, someone saw a vision 150 years ago that this community needed a witness. And that's what it has been for 150 years. We pray, Lord, that your blessings will continue to be upon it. Bless the leadership. Bless the Lord, all who are acquainted with it. Hold this individual, these individuals up in their prayer. Thank you again for this privilege of being here today, and at one time being a part of this ministry to this church. Thank you, Lord, for all your blessings, and watch over us and care for us today, and give us a good day for us. All we ask you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I had never baptized anybody. I wasn't sure I could get them under there and get them back out. Here's what I had to baptize. I had another one, I don't see him out here, he said, well, Cornelius, how many have you lost? I said, none. He called for a minute and said, well, that's how many have you done? I said, this is my first time. And I think he was ready to back out. So we went through it fine. I had these two small gentlemen baptized. I guess it's done well for that. All the water has gone on the ridge. In my case, a lot of hair's come out. There's just plugging the current break. But it's been some mighty good times. We see the church grow our call from some 50 to 60 on Sunday school and Sunday preaching down to around 15 now. I'm going to ask just the local members to please stand up right now. Just the local members right here in the front. So you see, we are a small number. The Lord always works with quality, doesn't he? And we have quality here for this, and you will let it know. Some of the finest people have passed through the doors of this church. I started out here, as I said, the very first church I ever had, right here. I came down on Christmas in 1955. We had a little old camp house up here now that's gone near Miss King's house, and we had a little fellowship supper and a small service up there, and they wanted to see something they liked. They called me to come down and be their pastor. And I was here for almost 4 years, and then the armed services called, and I tried to resign. They wouldn't take my resignation with me. When they called Brother S.K., they said, we've given our preacher a leave of absence. He's gone for 4 years, so that's how long we're calling you. So we've had some good times. We've seen the church do some wonderful things here. I look out here, I almost want to call Canada, but I did a song. It's been so long since she stood up here and let us sing in the Western, our Sunday school classes, our Sunday school superintendent. So many of you. We have so many close ties with. It certainly is good to see all of you here. I want to thank Brother Lawrence and his family for coming down, and Brother Lawrence leading us in these songs. My two song leaders were just too choked up this morning to even try. Brother Lawrence has agreed to do it, and we appreciate him so much. Let's give Brother Lawrence a big hand. It means a lot to our church. Every time he comes, he's so willing to do whatever we need done. And we do appreciate him taking part like that. All right, how many are former members of this church? Stand up. Former members. Well, you know, 150 years is a long time. As I was trying to put together our program this morning, I thought of things I could do to try to bring out 150 years. Well, I couldn't equal a third of that field since I'm only 50, so I had to remove myself from preaching this morning. So I searched around and I found a man, and he's been here forever. So I guess he comes as close to being the 150 mark as any of us. Brother Thomas Aldridge has pastored out here in Utah for quite some time, on 2 occasions. A very good friend of all of us out here in this community, and he graciously agreed to be our speaker this morning. Lord, we're so thankful that you chose to be with us this morning. We're so thankful that you came. And I know Brother Lonnie, Brother C.C., all the rest of the members are just so thankful that we're out here in school. Property is almost full. I said I wanted all the main seats on the floor filled. I wanted the balcony filled. I would be unhappy if it wasn't. But I'm not unhappy. We have the crowd we're looking for. God's been gracious to us. Brother Lawrence is going to come and bring us a special music. And then Brother Lawrence will bring us our message this morning. They will join in now.
trail crept in on me, and I raised part of the tape out of what I say. It's real cobweb for our service. I selected a song this morning that brings a couple of thoughts to my mind. First of all, it takes us down our memories, our understanding of something that is very dear to us, and of course is what we need in special occasions that this brings our mind. It helps us remember the things that we need. Secondly, it helps us understand who the Lord Jesus Christ was. Because we see without Christ, none of this would be important in our life, none of it would be easy. The city that Godville here was made by what they were Jesus was, traces us back to the time when Jesus was and what he did in his life. So if you follow me, trace back to God.
celebration in 2 months. In the month of July, the first Sunday of July, I was walking back to church where I was pastor 50 years ago at the first vacation Bible school. That year, I was there 3 years before for part of a revival, and they had gotten out a bulletin like this, and they had a little biographical sketch, each one of the pastors was on the line. It had Brother Thomas